I guess it's time to get started. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to what is the very first ever live stream that I've been doing, or that I am doing right now. Apparently, this is going out on Twitter, on Twitch, and YouTube Live. So wherever you are tuning in from, thank you very much. And you will notice that you can very likely chat with me, which I highly recommend, because I am going to respond to questions that people have. I'm going to just talk to you about the things you want to know, because this is supposed to be a thing for you, not necessarily for me. So just leave a question, leave a comment, and we'll get chatting. The reason I'm doing this whole live stream today is because Zero to Sold, my book, is 2 years old today, which is a whole thing. And that is wonderful. And I thought I would celebrate it. I would just do something on the day and do something that would be interesting to people. So we're going to talk about the book. We're going to talk about the things that are in the book. We're going to talk about any kind of potential question you might have about the book. And I will read from the book. And I will talk a lot about my experiences with building software businesses, with building audiences, with hanging out with people in our community, trying to empower the community, and all of this over the next couple hours. It's going to be a free form thing. Like I said, I've never done any live streams before, so I'm just going to try and figure out how all of this works. And yeah, we'll go from there, I guess. I would like to just start out by saying again, hello to everybody joining today, and we'll see what's going on and what we can do today with this live stream. One thing I really enjoyed about writing Zero to Sold was that it was a book that I never actually intended to write, which is probably surprising because most authors intentionally write the books that they're writing. But I feel like today's a good opportunity to talk about the origin story of a thing that I never set out to do, but it turned out was one of the most important things I ever did. Zero to Sold happened because after we sold our business, Danielle and I, my partner and I, we had a software as a service business and we sold it. After we did that, I fell into what I would call a void of purpose, something where I really didn't know what to do. Right? We sold the business, and I noticed that for some reason, everything I did up until that point was generating purpose for me, and I had just sold it. I had just given it away. And that was incredibly frustrating because you don't think about this. Like, you don't expect things to just fall apart, particularly if they are things that you just take for granted. Like, you build a business, you serve your customers, that is purpose, right? That helping people, serving people, that is your purpose at that point. And if you don't know that, if you are not aware of this, then you sell the thing and all of a sudden your purpose is gone as well. And that's what I felt. I felt that what had given me at this point, all this energy just fell apart. And I really quickly needed to find something new. And I did in writing, because I started the blog. I felt like all this knowledge that I had accumulated over these many years, that first of all, we ran Feedback Panda, the business that we sold for 2 years, but I had built a lot of businesses prior to that. So the years before count into that as well. And all of this knowledge, the good stuff that worked out and the bad stuff that didn't, it was all in my head still. Pretty intensely too, because we were just finished running that business. And so from that, I really took everything I knew, took everything that I was aware of, and then codified that into writing, into articles and stuff. So yeah, that is how my book started, because I started with the blog, with the articles, and then I just wrote like a couple dozen of them every week. That was the idea, right? I wanted to give something to the community once a week. And then people told me, hey, this is really cool, but this looks like it's a bigger thing. It's not just articles. Like, I can see that there's connection there. They told me, hey, this is something bigger. So I looked into it, and I turn it into a guide, a compendium, something that is more structured. And then people like told me quite literally, hey, I would give you money for this if it was a book. Okay. So that's exactly how Zero to Sold happened. I didn't mean to write it. I wrote a couple blog posts, but it turned out that, well, people wanted more. So I wrote more. And I would like to say hi, by the way, to everybody in chat. Really nice to see you there. You know what? I'm going to put this up so we can actually see what we are talking about. So far, I see that I have a couple greetings here. Kekeli, well, thanks for that, by the way. I'm glad that the book is making you think about stuff. That's kind of the point of what I wrote there, right? Because everything that I learned in these years of building the business and the many years prior to that, failing a lot of business stuff, was most of the things that we take for granted, most of the conventional thinking doesn't really work for bootstrapped or indie funded businesses. That is just, for some reason, there are conceptions that we have about how an economic system works and how building a business works that we got told by people who only see the big industry enterprisey kind of side. So that definitely is something that every founder in their way from zero to wherever they're going, to either to sold, to selling the business, or to a life of infinite revenue and income, whatever it is, every founder will at some point notice that, what I thought was right is really not right. So that's the reason why I wanted to write these blog posts in the first place, and then wrote the book as a consequence of that, because it is the learning these little things that takes so much time and can be so painful. And even though you still have to learn them yourself, you still have to go through all these steps and painfully make these mistakes, it is good to know what these mistakes might be and how you can kind of claw your way out of them, right? That is the difference why I believe that even though there is no golden path towards success in business, books that talk to you about how other people succeeded, how other people failed, all kinds of resources, not just books, podcasts and blogs and videos and whatnot, all of this stuff together gives you the foundation to at least understand where those little problems might lie, right? Where the loose steps on the stairs are, where you have to tread carefully, and what to do when you have to deal with these issues. Hence, I wrote this conveniently placed book, from which I will read today if you guys are up for it. I don't really know what I'm going to read from it yet. I think I will do a little straw poll at a later point just to see which chapter we might want to read. By the way, if you want me to read one particular chapter here on stream, just go to zerotosold.com. There is the table of contents is right on that page, and just tell me in chat where which one you would like me to read. By the way, yes, I did get a haircut yesterday, and I had been growing my hair out for 2.5 years. I just noticed it yesterday and going to the barber. Like, this is the very first day after 2 years of COVID hair, which is essentially me just hiding in my apartment and my house from anybody out there, not even going to a barbershop for a couple of years. So yes, I did get a haircut, so thanks for noticing, and I do think it looks great. Honestly, I also did it because I do want to do more on YouTube and in video, and for some reason, like short hair is just easier to manage, and it looks better in video. It looks better in photos. You know, it's harder to crop with long hair. Anyhow, that is the story of my haircut. I'm glad we get to talk about this. Yeah, Igor, this book was really validated in public, not even intentionally. I didn't blog these things out to test for a book. I did that with my second book, with the Embedded Entrepreneur, which is something that I released a year ago. And I think it just turned a year, couple of months ago, sometime in May. I might do a festivity for that next year. Who knows? A little sale, maybe? Well, a little sale, maybe? I did that, the validation in public stuff. I did that. I learned that through Zero to Sold, right? Zero to Sold was, for me, the the way to learn how to build stuff in public, because Feedback Panda, the business that we sold, was not really built in public. Like, we built that thing pretty much in private for ourselves, and then into the community where Danielle, who was the online English teacher, the kind of community that this tool was for, where she was actively working. So we did it in public, but in a kind of private public sphere. We were in a Facebook group that was public, but it was very specific and not technically built in public as we know it now. So that is something that I have learned to do through writing the book. And I did that in particular with the second one that I wrote. Self-publishing is super hard, and I can definitely talk about this later if you want to, or if you want me to. That stuff will definitely be an interesting topic. If any of you want to write something, definitely just ask and I'll talk about it. But as a recommendation, anything you can do and build in front of your A, prospective audience, your potential customers in the future, and B, your founder peers, is a good idea. Because either of these groups will tell you if it's something useful and if it's well done. You know, can switch around. Some founders can have more vision, have more experience. They can tell you that you're doing something incredibly smart or incredibly stupid. Again, take any piece of advice with caution. But, you know, some people have been there where you are, and they can tell you what they encountered that you are yet to encounter. And when you do this in front of your audience, in front of your people, then you have the added benefit of, really just getting direct feedback immediately. Much better than building something in private for many, many months and then launching it with a big fanfare to a community that doesn't care about it, or to an audience that doesn't care about it. I was just talking to another founder earlier today, and they were telling me that they've just been building this thing for the last, 6 to 8 months. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, haven't I been talking about this in public so often that you really shouldn't build things in private, even though you might feel like somebody might steal your idea or something? But it really is a problematic approach, because if you don't do this in public, all your validation is kind of backloaded. So you have to hope for a long time, and then you get to test when you already invested many, many months, sometimes even years of your time into your product, into your own business, right? You may have hired people already. You may have paid people tens of thousands of dollars, or whatever your local currency is, just to build the prototype that you may not even have validated with your target audience. You don't even know if people need this, if they can use it, if they are capable of using this, if they are already using something else, or expect a different medium, or expected to fit into a very different workflow than how you built it. All these things are backloaded. You have to check that later. So it's super risky to do this, which is kind of the point of the embedded entrepreneurship approach that I talk about both in Zero to Sold and in the Embedded Entrepreneur. Direct marketing is really not my thing. But, you know, like, that stuff is dangerous. It is dangerous to build something, you know, just in the hope that people might like it. Hence, I learned this by writing these books and helping other people build stuff in public, which is just a more sensible approach for somebody who has their own money invested into their business. Maybe that's one of the bigger things too. Because if your money is right, everything you have, your savings may be riding on your business. You need a good business that turns out to reliably be a sustainable and profit-making business, right? This is not a VC thing where you use somebody else's money to maybe have a shot at growing something big. If you use your own money, if you're self-funded, if you are bootstrapped, if you are friends and family funded, but not in a VC way, right? Not in a round way, just you get some cash and you hope to pay them back soon. Well, then you better build something that has a high chance of survival from the start. Hence, embedded entrepreneurship, go into a community, understand what they do, figure out which problems they have, which of them are critical, solve it with them, for them, and then build an audience within that community to jumpstart your project. That is, I guess, very much the idea of embedded entrepreneurship. Okay, I'm looking back at chat. Hello, everyone. Hey, Michael. Hey, Killian. All very, very happy to see you guys. Glad you liked the spreadsheet in the Embedded Entrepreneur. Well, Yeah, there is something to a methodical approach, right? Like the first part of the embedded entrepreneur is essentially me talking about how I look for audiences, right? It's like a list of things, list of potential audiences, and then doing a step-by-step approach, ranking them, trying to find which of these things has a big opportunity or affinity, which things you like, and how big the market is, and then getting a gigantic list of potential audiences that you could all serve, and then taking the one that has the highest score and building something for them. I find that a data-driven approach to entrepreneurship just really resonates with me because I'm a software engineer. I'm trying to do data-centric thinking, and anything that is wishful thinking, if there's no data behind it, I kind of try to scrap it because it just doesn't help, right? It might work, it might not work, but like I said, if you're building a tiny business that is supposed to turn into a lifestyle business with your own money, then it might work is not enough. It needs to be something that has a high chance of working. And the higher the likelihood of you serving the right people with the right business, solving the right problem in the right way, well, the better. And each of these 4 things can be validated before you write your first line of code or click your first no-code tool into existence. That is the idea of the preparation stage, which is the first, I think, half, funny enough, of Zero to Sold. I think Zero to Sold has 4 parts, right? It has the preparation stage, which is the whole, like, how to prepare a business. And then the survival stage is, like, get going. The stability stage is where you start to establish process and a team, that kind of stuff. And then there's the growth stage, which is anything beyond stability. When you turn your business into something that you could sell, keep running, or turn into a VC rocket, whatever, right? It doesn't really matter. But growth stage is the last one. And anything in the preparation stage is essentially pre-market. It's something that you do before you truly launch, and I mean this in a very flexible way, your business into your market. That is idea finding, that is validation process, that is MVP building. Those things are in the preparation stage. So again, if you want me to read a chapter from this, just go to zerotosold.com, look at the table of contents there, and then just tell me which chapter you would like me to read on stream. And I'm going to do a really cool live reading, fireside. I don't really have a fireplace, but I'm going to read it into this microphone for you. So you can learn something. And I might give some color commentary. I think I have a couple ideas that I will add to whatever I'm reading. So just if you're interested in these interesting things, let me know. I got to drink stuff. Otherwise, I'm going to be hoarse in the future. Okay, Florian, I'm going to answer that question. You said you've been very successful in building and selling Feedback Panda. However, I feel today it's very unlikely to find success with the SaaS. I do not believe so. I'm an investor in the Calm Company Fund run by Tyler Tringus, and I get to see bootstrap businesses that have taken very little cash after they already have turned out to be profitable, and I see new ones coming in every quarter. I see new ones succeeding in wildly weird niches that you have never heard of, I promise. I don't believe that finding success with the software as a service business is unlikely. It is always hard, right? There's always going to be competition. And the further you go ahead in time, the more competition there will be. But there are also new emerging markets. If you look at Feedback Panda as a product, right? I'm just going to take this as an example here. We built this product in the beginning of the online English as a second language teaching market in China. That was a year old, that whole market that did not exist prior to that, right? It was a market that was just not around because in China, the English as a second language teaching up till that point was just Chinese companies hiring English native speakers and then flying them into China to teach the kids. Now, all of a sudden, with the opening of the Great Chinese Firewall for these kind of business things, the whole world was a market. So we were there right at the beginning because Danielle found that as a job, as a side hustle to do from home in Berlin, where we lived. And we were well placed because China is over there. The United States, where most of the people that were teaching from is over there. And we were in Europe, right in the middle. Which means in China, it's late in the afternoon, when in the United States, it's very early at night in the morning. But for us, teaching kids in China in the late afternoon to night was just a 9-to-5 job. It was the perfect location to be in to teach. And it was also the perfect location to just kind of serve these two markets, because the Chinese companies were hiring those American teachers and we were selling to the American teachers. So, we were right in the middle between these two markets, and it was quite useful. And we were right there when it started, which is another thing. So maybe what I'm saying here is find a market that is currently growing and expanding. In those markets, building a SaaS is much easier than to build it in markets that are already established. Red ocean, right? That's what the phrase is. It's blue ocean, which is the new kind of market where nothing has happened yet. Blue ocean, and red ocean is the one that's full of blood of your competitors. So that's kind of how I envision it. In the red ocean market, SaaS is going to be hard, just as any business is hard in the red ocean market. And in the blue ocean market, SaaS is going to be easier, but may also be less likely to succeed, because if there is no competition, there usually is a reason for that. And nobody has thought of it in a global market is quite unlikely. It was not even the case for us. Feedback Panda was a tool that we built because the existing tools that were there for people to manage their feedback, they were just crap, right? There were competitive tools, and Google Docs Google Sheets was a competitor. Like, we were competing with people offering what we offered for free in their community. We just built a much better tool that was much more integrated into whatever people were using, into their existing workflow, than Google Sheets could ever be. Because Google Sheets is a general tool. It has to fit into everything, and that means it fits into nothing really well. But what we did, a browser extension that fit exactly into the online classroom. We had a system that gave the exact right output right into your clipboard or whatnot, so you could just paste it wherever you needed it to be. Like, we built a specific tool for a specific use case, but there was competition. It just wasn't very good. Blue ocean, kind of bluish, with a couple of streaks of red, but that's where we were. Now, I see a question here about running a SaaS in a third world country. Do you think it's possible to run a successful SaaS in Africa? I don't have much experience with Africa as a SaaS continent. I've been to South Africa once, and I talked to a couple founders, but it's apparently it's still very hard to build a software as a service business where in a place where first off there's always the problem with charging, right? You have the subscription business model that is not necessarily always the best model. And starting a business there generally might also be just complicated and formal in a bureaucratic way. I mean, I come from Germany, a country that is highly complicated when it comes to starting a business. That might just be the same in Africa. However, there are many ways to start a global SaaS business no matter where you are. Right? There are things like Stripe Atlas, where you can found an American company that has a Stripe account with an American Stripe account attached to it that can charge US dollars or whatever currency you want in whatever locale you are for, I think it's like $300 or something, or is it 3,000? I don't really know, but you would have to check this out. There's also First Base, which is a company that is funded by the Calm Company Fund, by the way, that does the same thing. Allows you to create a Delaware LLC or a Wyoming LLC. And so you can essentially start an American company with all the benefits of having an American headquarters and an American payment provider. And you can then take this and build a business that is not just serving your local community, but a global audience. Because honestly, most SaaS businesses, you could do them locally, but you can probably also just take a global approach, because most of the problems that are solved by SaaS businesses are technical problems that appear no matter where you are. right? Now, if you want to be build a specific thing, like you want to build a SaaS business that caters to hairdressers in Nigeria, then you might not need this whole global SaaS approach. But if you build a SaaS business that caters to hairdressers in Nigeria, you are very likely also capable of expanding into a neighboring country or into the whole African market, right? So my personal advice in this case would be to figure out where you want to go with your business and decide like how big you want it to be in terms of global reach. We built Feedback Panda with a global market in mind because we knew most of our customers were going to be American, but most that were not in America, like that were not located in the United States, were still American citizens just spread out all over the world. Essentially, digital nomads teaching English as a second language to Chinese people from wherever they were. There were people in Australia. There were people in Vietnam. There were people in China, in Japan, like in South Africa, in South America, like all over the world. We had like hundreds of different countries, or 120 or something, that we served with our product, which it was really good to have a Stripe account that could deal with all of this. Now, if we had started just as a German business serving German customers, we would have had not even 5% of our customer base, obviously, because most of them were in the United States. And our charging system would probably also have been involving weird German direct debiting systems or whatever. So I'm glad we went with the global approach first and then focused on a market in the global system, than building a local business. I hope this helps you determine if you can and how you want to start your business in Africa. But I think things like FirstBase, things like Stripe Atlas are a good idea and a cheap idea that doesn't have a lot of yearly cost attached to it, particularly if you don't make money with it. But even if you do, like the United States tax system is, particularly in Delaware and Wyoming, pretty lenient. Again, I am not a lawyer or a tax professional. Talk to those people. My recommendation is to talk to them because it's definitely worth it. Okay, looking back at chat. Hello there, everybody. Hey, Tom. Hey, Simon. Nice to see you. Gonna go with Tom's question here. For a SaaS product, when does it make more sense to price on a pay-as-you-go basis as opposed to tiered pricing? That is a good opportunity for me to take this here fine book and just look at the pricing chapter. I might want to read this to you. I'm just going to have to find it first because there is something to pricing that depends, because not all pricing models are equal. Let me find pricing models that can break your business. No, that sounds like an interesting idea. Just find it. Your initial pricing will never be right, but try anyway. That's also an interesting chapter. I'm just going to answer the question real quick and then I'm going to look into which chapter I might read. But the idea is pay-as-you-go pricing is great if the problem that you're solving is scales. If the value that people get out of your problem or out of your solution to their problem is scaling with the amount of money that they put in. Let's say they use your tool for an hour a week and they save $2,000. And then they use your tool for 5 hours a week and they save $10,000. Your pricing should reflect that. And this is called the value metric of your relationship with your customer. I'm trying to find it in my book because I talk about this in the pricing approach. If you can find the value metric there, if you can find the one thing that if that goes up for your customer, you see something in your own usage of your tool changing and you can charge for that, that is what you should charge for. If that's a clear correlation. If there's not a clear correlation, then tiered pricing models based on usage or some weird arbitrary numbers that you say, you can have like 10 different records or 10 different customers, clients, and if you want more, you have to pay more, then that makes sense. Then the number of clients is your value metric. It's just harder to pinpoint directly, right? Like if you can see an hour usage of my product is this much money saved, you can scale by the hour. If somebody with five clients makes a little bit of money, I charge them $10 a month, but somebody with 50 clients makes a huge lot of money, yeah, well, you charge them $500 a month, right? That is the difference. And that is where that's where I would determine which of these pricing models is a good idea. Yeah, find my You know what? Like looking into a physical book is one of the most enjoyable things, but it also is one of the most time-consuming things to find that stuff. So what do we have here? Early adopter pricing. That's not okay. Value metric. I'm just going to read you this thing from the book about value metrics. Now here we go. My first ever public reading of my book. Your price should reflect what you think the value of using your product is for your customers. This is tricky as software products are continually evolving and the value they generate evolves with the product. A good strategy to measure the value you provide to your customers is to determine their central value metric and measuring that. What is a value metric? It's the most relevant metric that goes up when your customer's business is doing well. For an image hosting service, it's the number of images uploaded. For a music streaming business, it's the number of times their songs were streamed. For a team building service, it's the number of team building exercises successfully finished. If your customers are barbers, it's the number of beards they can shave in a day. The point is, if that number goes up, they make more money. And if that number goes up, you should make more money too. If you use tiered pricing, splitting the tiers among certain economically sensible limits of that value metric will make a big difference in your revenue. So this little section from Zero to Sold may just have answered your question. So I'm glad you asked the question. Hope that helps. If not, just put more in chat and I'll get to that as well. JD is asking, are you aware of SaaS businesses that have used, what is it? Sorry, I scrolled past here. Pay once, use forever pricing model. That's kind of the, go into this. That is one of the things you should probably not necessarily avoid, but it's a risky thing. It's a risky thing in the sense that this kind of sounds like a lifetime pricing, right? This is something that I wrote about in Zero to Sold as well. If you already have the book, you will find that in discounts. No, it's not. Lifetime accounts. The risks of lifetime accounts is page 290. Lifetime accounts are quite similar to what I was talking about here is freemium, right? The freemium is part of that article. I say freemium is kind of risky because people that have no money won't pay money. Lifetime accounts are quite similar, as the danger also lies in resource consumption that after some time exceeds the money they paid for the product. For a customer, lifetime means their own lives, but well, for most businesses, the term lifetime in question is that of the current iteration of the product. Yet it's lifetime of the product, not lifetime of the customer. And this can be quite confusing, and it usually leads to bad blood once the perceived forever account gets migrated into a monthly plan or something. These accounts are great to raise initial capital for a business, which is what you see businesses doing, by the way. But they create a lot of pain and become liabilities in the later stages of a business, particularly when you intend to sell the business. And this is also what you see. Many businesses that sell lifetime accounts can't turn profitable and then they just implode, which also means the lifetime that people were talking about just goes away, right? So lifetime is risky and you don't see too many of it. You have it with, obviously, info products work like that. You buy a book, you have it for your life. But for SaaS businesses, it can be something good that you do initially just for a limited amount of customers. Like limit your amount of lifetime accounts compared to your monthly accounts. That's what comes in the next paragraphs of the book, by the way. Page 290. The idea is lifetime, great for the start, but stop it at some point and then try to get to recurring revenue as much as you can, because recurring revenue is plannable. You can work on retention, keep it coming in, and resource consumption may increase, but you can also increase the fees, right? Or you can offset certain things with the monthly incoming revenue, because at some point your lifetime accounts resource consumption is reached, right? They paid $100. A couple of years from now, they will have used $100 worth of resources. So anything beyond that is something that you have to pay out of your own pocket. And you better have some recurring revenue coming in to cover that, which is why most recurring revenue-based businesses try to really severely limit their lifetime accounts. That's what I see. All right, back to other questions. Thank you, by the way, to everybody who said I have a nice setup for streaming. I think I pay like $5,000 for all the lights and cameras and that and the fancy stuff. So this has been a fun project, a fun experimentation project. I probably should do a video about this at some point because it was super exciting to do. Just getting lighting done, it's just enjoyable. And yes, this, by the way, if you were to see what is behind this, there's an unfinished basement, like with concrete floor and some random boxes right behind this. So this is all the illusion of TV, right? So this looks nice, but that one does not. All right, let's go here. Mark asks, as I increase the value for my product by increasing the amount of content and features, is it best to grandfather in early adopters at earlier price or increase price as value increases? Funny that you should ask, because grandfathering is also something that I have something to say about in this fine book. You know what? Writing a book is one of the best things you can do just to be able to reference your own thinking. It's been a blast to be able to just, pull up a page that is called Grandfathering Affected Customers. I'm just going to read you my thoughts on grandfathering, and then we can talk about this particular project. Grandfathering can be great to keep your early customers around, but there's a risk of underselling your product significantly. It can be a business risk not to be able to claim the real value of your product as revenue just because you think your customers are emotionally attached to a lower price. Expansion revenue is made possible if the customers who happen to be subscribers already are receiving a lifelong discount. An excellent way to allow grandfathering is making it conditional and temporary. Allow them to keep the lower price for a year if they upgrade to a yearly subscription. Else force them to upgrade to the new price eventually. Understand that they should pay for the product they receive today, not the product they signed up for years ago. When we removed our cheapest plan, I'm talking about Feedback Panda here, we decided to grandfather our $5 a month customers. One noticeable consequence was that most customers who reached the limits of their plan eventually upgraded. Only a few customers tried to stay under the limit by deleting their data diligently. They would rather save a few dollars a month than have access to their old feedback data. That says a lot about them. As this number was relatively low, we ignored it and never encouraged them to upgrade. It wasn't worth our time at the point. We grandfathered our customers indefinitely, which is something that I would not recommend. Right? We should have done this just for a year. And actually, once we got acquired, the people who acquired our business changed that. They reintroduced this kind of year-long limitation to grandfathering, and it seemed to work well for them. So give your customers a high but finite amount of time to enjoy their old subscription plan. After a year or so, request that they upgrade to the corresponding more expensive plan. Your product has grown in terms of value. So all of your subscribers eventually should compensate you accordingly. And don't think about this as an emotional thing. Like, people made a bet on you, sure. But just because you made a bet once doesn't mean you get to benefit from the whole thing forever. That's really not how a changing world of business should work. And the people who will stop using your product because they can't get it for the same price they got it 5 years ago, are they people that are really interested in your product, or are they just interested in saving some money, right? And who do you want to serve? The people who are both, or the people who are just there for the cheap plan? So that hopefully that will help you with your pricing. Simon, thanks for talking about Zero to Sold as the audiobook. And I think, yes, I should have done this myself. I think I might read this whole thing into this here very microphone at some point. But honestly, the professional voice actor that did Zero to Sold, the audiobook, that is now on sale. Sorry. That is now on sale as well with as all my other things today. That actor spent 11 hours reading the thing, and I think the whole thing, like the whole read through the book, must have taken him like 40 or some hours, like with all the editing and all the repeat stuff. And I read a 2,000, 3,000 word article into this microphone and this camera every week as part of my weekly blog post and an article and newsletter and podcast episode. The work that goes into this is bizarre. Like, one mispronunciation of a single letter, repeat the whole sentence, and then edit that, and then keep the tone correct. Like, keep the tone just the same, so it feels like it's natural. There's a lot of work that goes into reading an audiobook, and maybe I should not have written a book this thick. By the way, everybody here today will, for the very first time, see the only copy of Zero to Sold in existence that has 600 pages, because I had this printed before I sent it to the editor. Old copy, new copy. Yeah, there is a slight difference in height between these. Also, I think this is what my first draft of the cover looked like, and this is what the actual cover turned out to be. The bar is the not for resale bar that Amazon puts there if you have a printed proof sent to your home. So imagine it without the bar, but that is my initial cover. So if you ever thought, how does that work? That's how it works. So this is what I had printed before I sent it to the editor, and then 2 editors got to work on this and cut it down by 100 pages, which was good because, yeah, it also allowed me to take these 100 pages and turn them into another ebook, which is now a reward for finding referrals for my newsletter. Like if you're signed up to the Bootstrap Founder newsletter, thebootstrapfounder.com, which is where my newsletter lives. And if you refer any of your friends, if you refer just one person, you get access to all these chapters that are in here, but not in here. So that was nice. It was a nice little extra thing that I had. Most of them, funny enough, like half of these chapters turn out to be the groundwork for this, which is my second book, The Embedded Entrepreneur. All of this like info product stuff is just incredibly synergetic. There's a lot of synergy between these things. Like you write one thing, you think about something else, and that turns out to be part of your next big project. It's really cool. So yeah, there we go. Yeah, what I want to say, I might end up reading this as an audiobook at some point, but I said already, this is an unfinished basement, so the acoustics in here are not perfect for reading. You can probably tell there might be background noise or little things. My little puppy upstairs might be walking around at some point. You might hear that, and I don't really have the isolation needed to really narrate a good audiobook, at least not in here. Might at some point. But honestly, I'm really glad with the job that Derek did, Derek Barden, the narrator for my audiobooks, both of them. So yeah, but I do like reading from my own book. It's just enjoyable because I often find myself agreeing with myself. Oh, God. It's not the most humble thing to say, but it's really nice to have your thoughts in that shape in the book. So thanks, Alexei, for getting the audiobook. I see that here. I have my little Gumroad stream open and show you this real cool screenshot of this. Oh, there you go. Another sale right as it happened. So that's what's happening. I just have a sale going, and I'm gonna put this up again at the risk of sounding and looking like this is a marketing thing, which it kind of is. Honestly, let's just be honest with this. The stream is both an AMA just as much as it is a marketing exercise. So I'm doing marketing in public, building in public, streaming in public. It's all part of the idea to be honest about doing business. So yeah, all 3 of my products, my course and my 2 books are available for 50% off today. And if you live in a country that has purchasing power parity pricing supported, you get another up to, I think, 70 or 80% off. Depending on where you're from. Like we talked about building a SaaS business in Africa. Most African countries, due to purchasing power parity, the people in those countries cannot afford to buy my books, which is why I turned on purchasing power parity. And I might want to show you this because if you are a founder and you have a product that is an info product or even a SaaS business, you might want to have purchasing power parity turned on. And everybody now here gets to see the 5% discount that the country of Canada and most Western countries get to have, but that doesn't really matter. This is what the Zero to Sold, the website looks like, the landing page for my book. And when you navigate to this page, you get this little banner. The tool that I use is called Parody Deals, which is done by a founder, another wonderful founder on who is on Twitter, Sachin. Like, let's look at Parody Deals. Can find this here. This is the product, and I use that for my. Let me just do the full screen here so you can see the whole thing. And I use that for zero to sold as well. I used it for zero to sold. I use that for the embedded entrepreneur and for find your following. Like all of them. And what is it? Embedded entrepreneur. There we go. All of them have this little banner that just comes up, and that's is integrated with Gumroad. So Gumroad will allow you to use this code to get the percentage off. And depending on where you are, Parody Deals will allow you to price, your product, or depending on where your customers are, they will allow you to price your product in a way that is good for the people that you want to serve. So that's the idea behind purchasing power parity pricing, and that's what I use for all my info products, and that's why today with the sale I have people, you can see this from the sales that I'm getting, they get the weirdest prices. Like there's one person that bought something for like $3.99. There's one person that bought something for $7.99, $4.74, all these weird little random numbers. That happens when you allow people to take or get the price that they can afford. And for African countries, obviously, that's like sometimes 50 to 70% off. I think somebody from Angola had like a 60% discount. Now, you might ask, how does it work with VPNs? Do people cheat? People try, but Parody Deals has a VPN detection system. And honestly, from a creator's perspective, I would rather have 99 people get a better price and have one person save a couple dollars by cheating than to not have 100 people to even have a chance of affording the thing that I put out there, which is why purchasing power parity pricing is something that I do with all my products, and I highly recommend for you to do as well, both for your info products if you have info products going, or even for your SaaS. And this might be weird because if it's worth $29 a month, it should be worth $29 to everybody using it. But if somebody wants to start a SaaS business in Nigeria, and your tool to, I don't know, Parody Deals, for example. Parody Deals is a SaaS business that I pay, I think, $30 a month for. They themselves use Parody Deals to offer their product for $10 in Nigeria, right? That's the idea. And, oh yeah, Florian, thanks for that. Yeah, so it's a euro price that's being shown there as well. So that is the difference. Right? That makes a whole lot of difference because now all of a sudden people from that continent can afford a tool that makes their own software affordable globally. So they can now price it at $30 a month for US customers, but customers in their own country get it for $10. Before that, they may have been locked to a max price of $10 that they would have to use globally. Now, all of a sudden, customers from the US, to whom it would be worth 30, would only be paying 10. Now they get to capture that revenue. That's the power, the upward power and the downward power of purchasing power parity pricing, which itself uses a thing called the Big Mac Index, which is hilarious. Like, if you've never heard of this before, I wonder if Parody Deals has it on their website. Let's see. But the idea of the Big Mac Index is purchasing power parity pricing tries to imitate a pricing model that scales with purchasing power. And purchasing power is hard to measure globally because there are few things that are the same all over the world. And for that, usually economists use a basket of things like a piece of bread, some butter, some milk, and then they kind of try to find the prices all over the world. But with purchasing power parity pricing, the Big Mac Index is an interesting thing because McDonald's is all over the place. Well, maybe not in Russia anymore, but like every country has McDonald's and every country has the Big Mac or something similar. And for that, well, you can just take the Big Mac, the price of the Big Mac in any country, any given country, and you can figure out compared to two countries compared to the dollar or something, how much purchasing power does a dollar or the local currency have compared to the dollar in the country. And that is the kind of discount that you get for your purchasing power parity pricing. I'm just going to go to my own little Twitter post that I did. And anybody who would like to support me, obviously share this link to wherever you're watching the stream with people, so more people can watch this and learn something if they're interested. And please retweet this thing that I have as my pinned tweet today, because that's the sale. Obviously, more people seeing it means more people get to buy these things for cheap for the next, what is now 22 hours. And you will also find in there a description of how purchasing power parity pricing works, and this article that I wrote about purchasing power parity pricing, why I have it, how it works. It's even a podcast episode, apparently. Everything I do is a podcast, and it explains the Big Mac index and all these things. So if you're interested, you can find that in my article as well, and my reasoning about this. So that's kind of why I do this. I find it very, very interesting to build an info product based business that is globally available. Because here's one thing. There are probably a couple people from India here right now. So I'm just going to say hi to everybody who's spending their late hours in India with me today. I never knew that I had an audience in India until I was on Twitter and I just interacted with all of them. And in those interactions, a lot of people talk to me about not being able to afford my book. Like Amazon India has my book on there as an ebook and a printed book. Apparently the ebook, great, people buy this. But the printed book is completely unaffordable to most people. And that is unfortunate. Even the ebook is quite expensive. Amazon India runs a lot of deals, so you might get it for cheap, but it's hard. And if you then want to buy my products as a person from India on Gumroad, now all of a sudden you're looking at a price of $10, which may be more than twice that compared to your local currency, so you can't afford it. So I got encouraged to look into purchasing power parity pricing because I have a large audience in India. And they're just talking to the people that use your stuff, that read your stuff, that use your SaaS. That can often give you insights into how your pricing works, if it's affordable, if it's even feasible for them to think about purchasing this, or if it's not. And purchasing power parity pricing can do a lot there. So yeah, if you have any further questions, a couple of them may have scrolled past, so I'm sorry I might not be able to see them. I'm going to try and find all of the earlier questions. Give me a second. Walk through my office. Can't do that just yet. This camera is mounted on a fixed mount, but I will make that happen at some point. I think I'm just gonna do a little studio setup walkthrough to begin with, because like I have colored light there, colored light over there, which you can probably see. I have a key light over there. I have another little light there. I have an ambient light here. I have a light that should be on but isn't, which I will show you now, which I will now do remotely. I hope it's gonna work, because that would be nice. But lots of little things. I have a little light on the side back there. You can probably see that. I have in the background a light over there that mimics the color of this one right here. There's a lot going on in the studio like this, and all of this is extremely enjoyable and super frustrating to set up, I can tell you that. So that is kind of the story so far. And then obviously there's a microphone. I have a Rodecaster system that allows me to do this kind of stuff with the stream, or say things like that I shouldn't. Like there's cute little things that are in the streaming setup. Obviously I have a Stream Deck little scene switcher, so you can see me fully, or like this, right? Or as we had it the whole time with the little AMA setup. I'm using Restream as a platform because that's where the chat is coming from, as you can tell. And I have a lot of things going on and this. So the setup would work. The software that I'm using is OBS. That is I could show you. It's going to be a bit weird, but this is what it looks like. I mean, this is what it looks like with me in it, but that's just really what it is. It's a setup that has all my different scenes here, and the input that I got, and I can switch between these scenes manually, or I can do this with the Stream Deck that I have, which is a little button-based thing that I'm using to, control the stream. I might stream more in the future, but only if it has a point. Right? I just don't want to like hang out and talk about like random things. I want to be able to talk about things that matter both to you and to me. So I might do little, maybe like weekly event streams, like a fireside chat, AMAs like this. So if you have further questions, please drop them. Otherwise, I'm going to start reading stuff from my book. And you don't know, you might want me to start reading things from my book. But if you have any particular questions, just drop them in. I might do that. I mean, why not read a couple chapters from the book every week and see if people tune in, right? That's everything I do is experimental anyway, so I might just as well do that. Okay, let me do some quick marketing. Let's do some marketing in public right here. Let's go to Twitter, and you see my incredibly huge stream that I have going on here, and write a new tweet. Live stream currently happening. This might actually be on Twitter too, on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, I think. And then we take the YouTube link that I still have from earlier, and then we grab Twitch, which I think is this one, twitch.tv/Arvid, and Twitter should be visible to other people. Well, how about we use this? That should be better. And then we focus on the 0 to sold celebration live stream. All right, there we go. Now let's see if more people tune in. I don't know how many people are currently tuned in, but for everybody who's here, well, hello there. Let me start reading a couple more things from Zero to Sold, just because I really enjoy it. If you don't really know what Zero to Sold is about, I will now read you the Feedback Panda story, which is the introduction to Zero to Sold, just so you understand what happened and what the book contains, right? Because the book is everything from pre-idea to actually selling the business. And then I'm just going to jump through the book and read chapters from all different stages, just to get like a little insight into the kind of advice that you find in this book. And it's also good for me to constantly reiterate what I say, because I think repetition is key. And the more often you say things, the more you enable people to be there at the right point in their lives to take that advice and do something with it. So without further ado, if you don't have any questions at this point, I will now read the Feedback Panda story from Zero to Sold by me. I wrote Zero to Sold because I've been through starting multiple bootstrap businesses, growing a few, and selling one of them. Allow me to share the story of the one I sold. Within 2 years, I co-founded, ran, grew, and finally sold a software as a service business called Feedback Panda, a productivity tool for online English teachers. What many don't realize is that this was an overnight success many years in the making. Feedback Panda wasn't my first rodeo. I've been part of many internet businesses before, and I've had my fair share of failures. I was in businesses where we never finished building the product. I co-founded startups that fizzled out because we didn't know how to market our service. I've been involved in companies that didn't find a way to monetize their popular products, only to pivot to something completely different after many years of trying to make it work. I'll be sharing my experiences from both Feedback Panda and the not-so-successful startups in this book, as I believe that you can learn the most at the intersection of experience and knowledge. So I will provide you with both. Feedback Panda, the business that changed my life, was a service born out of necessity. It was a product that solved one critical problem for a well-defined audience that allowed me to experience and learn the things that I've compiled into this book. Feedback Panda was a collaborative effort between me and my girlfriend, Danielle Simpson, who was an English online teacher at the time. We bootstrapped the business from day one, and when we sold it for what I would call a life-changing amount of money, the monthly recurring revenue, the MRR, of Feedback Panda had just reached $55,000. Within 2 years, we had built a niche service from a proof of concept into a thriving business that was attractive enough for a private equity firm to take it off our hands. So where did this all start? It started with a leg injury. In early 2017, Danielle suffered an injury that meant she couldn't leave the house for a while. For a trained opera singer like her, that made regular work impossible. And you can't invite an audience of hundreds into your living room for a concert. Danielle started looking for work she could do from home, and she found something interesting. A wave of Chinese companies had emerged that recruited native English speakers to teach English as a second language to Chinese students. She tried out and was hooked immediately. It was a fun job. It could have been done just using a laptop, and the pay was all right. Shortly after, she found that there were several large online communities of teachers who taught for various Chinese companies. Danielle joined those online social media groups and forums and started hanging out with her virtual colleagues that numbered in the thousands at that point. By the way, that's an interesting and important part, right? Thousands of people already in a community around a business that recruits them and their friends and family to grow. That's an important part of why Feedback Panda was there in the right industry at the right time. We were there in the beginning when people were trying to expand their business. They were right there, and we saw them. We saw these communities with thousands of people. We didn't have to guess if they existed or not. We went to Facebook, and right there was 1,200 people are in this group. That's validation already. Like market size, existing potential market size is something that, if you know it before you start your business, is a wonderful thing to have, because it gives you an indication of the severity of the problems in the space and the fact that people might have a budget because they're actually making money. Back to the story. A few weeks into teaching on a full-time schedule, Danielle noticed things that started as nuisances but quickly became painful problems. The teaching part of her job was great and fun. Honestly, it was awesome. Watching her in front of her computer entertaining Chinese kids was one of the cutest things I ever saw. And it was also super stressful because it was a 10-hour-a-day thing. And I'm just going to answer questions as they come here in chat. How much was the life-changing amount of money? I am legally obligated to not say that. I can't tell you. Like, that is part of a contract of our sale, is that I can't tell you that number. You can probably figure out the rough band that software as a services that are 600,000 a year sell for, but I'm not going to tell you that. That's some research you might need to do. Well, I might. Usually it's between 2x and 10x of that. Yeah, it's kind of all I can say. And life-changing means that ever since we sold the company, I didn't have to do anything for work, really. I do these things because I want to do them, right? Like, my calendar is empty. The only things that I have on my calendar are things that I want to do, opportunities that I want to follow through, and people that I want to talk to. I have no boss other than myself and our puppy. I think our puppy counts as our new boss because she has more control over my life than any other human has. And I can choose to do what I want to do. So that's the kind of life-changing amount of money. We live in a house we didn't have before we sold the business. Maybe that helps too. So that's kind of... I'm not going to say anything about the calculations that are happening in chat right now. I'm just going to keep reading. Yes, I was saying it was a product that solved one critical problem for a well-defined audience. It allowed me to experience and learn the things that I've compiled into this book. We were teaching part was great. The most noticeable problem that Danielle was feeling was student feedback. And after every 25-minute lesson, the teacher would have to write a few paragraphs of a lesson report that was supposed to inform the parents of the child what the kid had learned, how well they learned it, and what they could do to practice at home. Having only 5 minutes between lessons, now that's the kind of limitation there, was the time that they could take care of this and everything else, ranging from just grabbing a cup of coffee to using the restroom. Danielle would defer this feedback work, until after she was done teaching for the day. It couldn't be avoided. It was something they had to do because the Chinese companies would not pay teachers even for their teaching if they hadn't filed the feedback to the parents. And when Danielle started teaching these 10-hour days, the added feedback time would often amount to almost 2 hours of unpaid overtime. And that was stuff she had to do and she didn't like, right? She liked teaching, she didn't like filing feedback. And that meant 2 hours less for spending time with me and meeting friends or reading a good book. So she did what everybody would do. She developed a little system of her own, using Excel sheets and Word documents to track information about what her students learned, how they did it, and what to suggest to their parents. She started using text templates for the content of the lesson and the preparation hints that she would give to the parents, because the Chinese schools defined the curriculum pretty stringently, and it could be used as a template for every student. Essentially, she taught different students the same thing in one-on-one lessons. And we found out that many other teachers had the same thing. They did the same stuff when they started talking about their self-built solutions in their online communities. Teachers began sharing their templates through Google Sheets. I mentioned that earlier. That was our biggest competitor. And it was clear that there was a shared problem in a very tight-knit community. And one day, Danielle and I talked about the painful experience of student feedback and how her system, even though it helped, was clunky and overwhelming. I looked into it. I'm a software engineer, and it seemed quite possible to build a web-based application that would do this work faster and more reliably. So I set out to do that. Another question: would you ever have to work again if you didn't want to? No, not particularly not now that I have, passive income through these info products. Investments that we made immediately after we sold the business. Like, people, I am on podcasts quite a bit because I just love talking, as you can probably tell. Otherwise, why ever would I do a live stream? But people ask me, what was the big thing that you bought? I bought a MacBook Air. That's the big thing that I bought after we cashed out. Right? We had the thing hit our bank accounts. We had a bottle of medium priced champagne. We were still in Berlin at that point. Drank a little champagne, and then we started investing our money. We didn't buy anything fancy. We just put the money to where it was going to make us more money, because we wanted this event to move us from financial instability to financial security. And it did, which is why I spent my Wednesday just talking to this camera. Talking to you, of course. But, that was the goal, and we put every single thing that we could do towards that goal. I started working, obviously, again, writing stuff, never with the express intent to make money, but obviously that makes me money. Like today, if you look at my Gumroad situation, today I have made $560 already. Can't really show you the exact names of the people buying it, because that's a privacy thing, but that's kind of that is what happens if you have info products and sales. Obviously, like if you have a sale like today, it's not always $560 a day. Well, wouldn't that be nice? But the passive income potential of these products also creates more wealth, right? Because these things sustain the existing investments and so on. So I think it's quite frugal. But obviously, we bought a house and we bought many things. And all these things, the equipment here, cost some money. But when I launched Find Your Following, the course, my Twitter course, which is also on sale right now, I can't do this without having to laugh a little. Like this marketing stuff, I try to be good at it. I try to take it as a normal thing that you have to do, but I still struggle. When I launched Find Your Following, the full course, which is $50 and $25 today, that course made me $15,000 within the first month. Right? That's the power of the launch of an info product to an audience of 50,000 people. That was end of January this year. I had 50,000 followers on Twitter. Now I have 71.5 or something today. So whatever I do next time around will probably be to an audience of 80,000 or 100,000 people. So every single product just has a bigger and bigger launch. And these things then feed my following as well, because if people think the things I do are good, they recommend me and my work to their friends, which I would recommend for you to maybe think about. And then that builds a bigger audience, which allows for a bigger launch for whatever comes next, right? So these things are also working towards the goal of having me sustain our financial stability even further into the future, right? The investments aside, the work that I'm doing right now is to both give back to the community, because obviously trying to teach people how to do entrepreneurship means that they get to be entrepreneurs and find financial security themselves. And it also creates a revenue stream for me. and for us, and for a little puppy who needs dog toys. Apparently they need to be switched up, and that needs to be financed in some way. So that is all, in there as well. Yes. And would I ever have to work again? Would I ever want to work again? Maybe a more interesting question, right? If somebody were to ask me, hey, we have a fund in bootstrap businesses, like what Tyler Trinkus is doing with Calm Company Fund. Do you want to work for us? I probably wouldn't say no. I don't know. I might also not say yes. It depends, right? Where I'm at and where we are at. But it's a thing, like you have this a lot. If you listen to one of the latest Indie Hackers podcast episodes, they had Patrick Campbell on, who sold Profitwell for $200 million. Right? For $200 million. And he was on that show. I really recommend the podcast episode that Channing and Cortland did with him, because it's just a treasure trove of sensible and non-guru information, which is why I think that the thing that Cortland Allen has done with the Indie Hackers podcast, he's been careful to invite people who are not just snake oil salesmen, right? He tries to get people on there that have real experience and who don't give advice that can hurt you, right? Anything that I say today, by the way, is my perspective on things that I learned by having them work for me. Anything in here, in this book, is advice that you may or may not want to take. I think that's how the book starts. I think that in the introduction, before this introduction, I say that, while this is a guide, a manual, and a compendium, in the end, you are the agent of your own success. Carefully reflect if the advice in this book, and any other book out there, by the way, applies to your business. Read and learn as much as you can, but treat all guidance and direction as anecdotal. Anything I say comes from my own experience. Doesn't have to be yours. And yours might differ. You will have to find your own combination of strategies and tactics. Zero to Sold will help you get there. But you will have to get there yourself, right? This is how I think about advice generally. And this is why I love the podcast, because the amount of advice, the kind of advice you get there on the Indie Hackers podcast is just spectacular. And they were talking about this whole working post-exit situation, because I think, and I'm with $200 million, some parts of it in shares, obviously, like he sold to Paddle, Patrick sold to Paddle, and the Paddle shares, and he has a position at Paddle. But some parts of it are in cash. And he said, which is incredible, in January this month, he had just paid off his home, and they had like $15,000 in cash. That was what they had. And now this man has $200 million in wealth. That's what indie hacking, what bootstrapping can actually do. And it is mind-blowing to me. But he was saying that he's been talking to a lot of founders post-exit who fell into this void. This kind of, like I talked about at the very beginning of the stream, the void of not knowing what to do next. And many founders actually fall prey to addiction at that point. There's a high addiction rate in post-exit founders because they need something to sustain that whatever they did. And funny enough, I used to be a World of Warcraft addict. Let me just say it right here. Like, I used to play World of Warcraft so much. I dropped out of university twice. I played it for years, for half a decade, like every single day with guilds, like doing raiding and professional gaming. I was lucky that I could do work in between to just keep myself afloat, but I played this game way too much. And when we sold Feedback Panda, I tried to get back into World of Warcraft because I knew this is something fun to do that gives me passion. Well, that didn't work. Like, I fell into the void, and this game that used to give me so much didn't give me anything anymore. Which is when I realized that online gaming, as fun as that was, did not come even close to the kind of purpose I found in helping people, in serving people. And that is something that luckily I found in building info products, writing books, writing blog posts, recording podcasts, doing things like this today. This is something that allows me to find my purpose and passion in helping others. And if there was an opportunity for me to turn this into another job or another business, I would probably go for it. And I will keep doing this. I'm not just gonna sit on some beach sipping drinks, which is also potentially an addiction. Right? There's many addictions out there. So not for me, not gonna happen. And I will keep doing things. My mantra, once I wrote Zero to Sold, was I'm gonna do one of these every year. And this is 2020. This is 2021. And Find Your Following, right over there, is 2022. I don't know what's going to happen for the rest of 2022. I don't know what's going to happen for the rest of what next year might bring. I usually do these things as they appear, right? As the opportunity appears. But I want to keep building things, making things for the entrepreneurial, for the creator economy, for people in these groups, and help themselves to success. Because I know that if I help you today, you will remember that I helped you. I don't need you to do anything for me. You don't need to buy these things here today. You can if you want to, but I'm not trying to squeeze anybody's wallet today. It's just that is a nice opportunity. This book is 2 years old. Might just as well give back. And what I expect is that if you are successful in the future, because I helped you a little bit, you might tell your friends, right, about my work. You might tell them to follow me on Twitter, to interact with me. I get to know more amazing people with amazing products, amazing projects. That is a win for me. I don't need money for this, right? I just want to be part of this community. Or they might look into my books. They might look into consulting or whatever I do. Give me an opportunity, invite me onto their podcasts, expose me to their audience. This stuff is long-term thinking, and I'm trying to do win-win long-term thinking situations. It's this kind of infinite game approach, right? Like Simon Sinek wrote a book called The Infinite Game, which recurs to finite and an older book from the 60s, Finite and Infinite Games, which the whole idea is if you play infinite games, these are games you cannot win. These games you just keep playing. And being in business is one of these. You can't win business, right? You could just keep having a business that is profitable. And that is a long-term perspective. That is an infinite game. And I'm doing the same on Twitter. I don't do giveaways much because I feel this is a finite thing. You follow me, I give you maybe a book. It's very transactional. Not a fan of this. But I will build relationships with people. And if I can build a relationship with you today, and you introduce me to your friends, and I can build a relationship with them, in the long term, everybody wins, right? So that's kind of called this eventual reciprocity. This kind of stuff will come back at some point. I don't know when. I don't know how. I don't need to, because I know it will. Okay. Let's go back into the questions here. I'm gonna answer. Florian, you have several questions. Very good. If helping people is so essential, would it be a good idea to open source your content? Well. Most of my content is open source. Anything that I do is really on my blog. And if you look into my products, if you look into particular Find Your Following, like the Twitter course I just did, there is a 4-hour version that I recorded that is a paid course, right? It's a paid course because it's essentially a book I wrote. It's 42,000 words of a script narrated into a camera with slides, with additional materials, with a community. There's value in this that people can get into. But I did a short version of this, which is called Find Your Following Essentials. I did this because for 50 days, over the last couple months, I recorded one video every single day, 2-minute video. It's kind of how much Twitter allows you to do, on one particular topic in terms of Twitter audience building. And I did that for free, 50 of these videos. If you go to my YouTube channel, which you are very close to, you will see these videos. They're still there. And I took those videos, I added them a little bit, and I turned that into a version of Find Your Following, the info product. Right? I edited out the beginning at the ends where I say, hey, this is Find Your Following, whatever kind of short video. Just took that away so people can really watch them without needing to listen to me saying the same thing 50 times. And I turned it into a Notion document, added some more information, put a $20 price tag or a $9 price tag on it, or $9.99 price tag on it today, right? That's kind of the idea. So the actual content, most of the content, is out there for free on Twitter and out there for free on YouTube. And the curated version where some additional work went into. I spent like 2 weeks like bundling it all up and editing it down and, you know, structuring it so it's usable and nice and usable. That is that costs $10 today and $20 tomorrow. That's the idea. So most of the things that I do are out there in the open. The refined, curated version is the stuff that people should pay money for because extra work went in there. And I believe that every piece of work should be compensated. And open sourcing something, like putting the videos on Twitter, putting the videos on YouTube, that is also finding compensation. I find compensation in attention, right? It's a funnel. People see this, interesting guy, maybe has more to say. They see my Twitter, they see the other things, might buy something. So it is helping them already substantially. And then there is a way for them to compensate me for it. It's kind of front loading the content, right? Zero to Salt, like I said, half of these things in the book, articles on my blog. All of them, like verbatim, well, not edited as much as this, but they're all there. Embedded Entrepreneur, half of the things in here already on the blog. They're already on Twitter, for that matter, if you look through my old tweets. So you'll find that I do that. Okay. Thanks, Graham, for that, by the way. Congratulations. You know what for. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think like when I was working as a full-time software engineer and back in 2017, 16, 15, I think 15 is when I started to work for a company in Hamburg, Germany. We were living in Berlin, Germany at the time. There's a 2.5 hour train ride between them. I used to commute a lot in that time. And on that commute, I was listening to the Indie Hackers podcast, to the Solopreneur Hour, Michael Neal, to Build to Sell radio. I read a lot of books. I read all the books that are in this shelf here, which are my entrepreneurial books. Can give you a couple names here. The 4-Hour Workweek is there. The E-Myth is in there. Start with Why is in there. Build to Sell. Hooked by Nir Eyal is in there. There is This is Marketing by Seth Godin. Like all these books I read because I wanted to learn how to eventually build my own business. And I had the opportunity to do that during these commutes. And listening to all these founders on these podcasts, listening to the audiobooks that I listened to, reading those books, anything I did, anything I teach now, I do from the shoulders of giants, literally, figuratively. I do from the experience of others that they willingly and freely and cheaply shared with me so I could do what I'm doing, which is why I go on podcasts so much, which is why I do this today. It should be recorded. I'm going to upload it to YouTube as well, if it's not already there. And why I'm so adamant about doing this in public, because I know that I benefited from people who spend time telling their stories, sharing their knowledge for free and for nominal fees, because these books had a price. And I learned from that. And when we sold the business, I figured I want to be that person for somebody else. I want to be like, when you ask me what my favorite book is, I will always say either The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, because that just gave me the mindset of what I wanted to have in the future. The Build to Sell by John Warlow, because that allowed me to build a business that was sellable from the beginning. It allowed me to conceptually build a business that had the sellability at its core. And then the E-Myth, the Entrepreneurial Myth by Michael E. Gerber, which allowed me to understand that just being good at the technical side is not enough, which allowed me to read into marketing, read into managing, and all kinds of things. Okay, we have a little special guest, by the way. The puppy is here. So if you're interested in seeing my puppy, it is now being brought by Danielle, my favorite co-founder and partner. Okay. Hi. So everybody say hi to Biene. Hi, Biene. Yeah, you're a good girl. Yes. There you go. So we have our newest co-founder here. How are you doing? How you like it here? You know, you like it? Yeah. Keep feeding her. So this is my little friend. She's a bit excited. You've never been down here, huh? Yeah, we keep her upstairs because this is my domain. And in my domain, a little puppy is a danger, a menace, because there's so many cables around here that she probably would start eating, and we don't want that, right? So yeah, you hear her munching?
It's probably really loud.
It is hopefully quite enjoyable. If anybody would like to take a screenshot of this and post it to Twitter or wherever you are, that would be a good idea. Hey, puppy, can you look up here? Yeah, say hi. You good girl. She is an absolute cutie, and she's wonderful. And I'm talking both about Danielle and the dog at this point. Yes. So shoulders of giants is kind of what I was talking about. That is how I feel, and I want to be that. I want to enable as many people as possible, which is why I'm yelling about it all the time. Right? Yeah, good girl. She has something to say as well. Okay. She's really sweet. Do you like hugs? Okay, I think she wants to go down, and we will now take her.
Hand off.
Yeah, hand off. Take this pup. Got her. All right, there we go. Live stream successfully. The guest. Bye, Biene. Thanks for coming. All right. Well, that was adorable. Isn't it the most wonderful thing? I cannot wait to have the dog in a less puppy stage where I can have her down here, right? You know, like on the floor, or maybe in the background somewhere, and I can have her be part of my podcast. I can have her be part of my regular events that I'm doing, because that would just be nice, and she's really cute. She's very calm, as you probably noticed. That was fun. Alrighty. Let us see what else we can do. I have a couple topics that I wanted to talk about in case you don't have any questions anymore. But there are more questions, so I'm just going to go into that. Would you consider investing in other SaaS in the future? I am doing that through the Calm Company Fund, where I am a limited partner, right? I invest money into the fund, and the fund finds and invests into these SaaS companies that are already profitable, already showing, you know, like some kind of alignment and potential to grow even more, not rocket ship style, but, you know, substantially and sustainably. So yes, when you ask for like angel investments, maybe, but I haven't really done that yet. So I'm interested in it, but it's also something that I would like to just learn more about first. Really not that versed in it yet, but I would like to. But and if you have something interesting to share with me, reach out on Twitter. I'm always interested in talking about these things, even though I might say no and likely would say no at this point. Keeping channels open. Now, buying another SaaS business from MicroAcquire, like a platform like MicroAcquire or Empire Flippers and whatever platforms exist. Now that would be interesting too. The thing is, you know that there's this article by Nathan Barry. The article, is, I think that the Ladders of Wealth Creation or something. And he talks about like how you go from creating a service to productizing that service to a SaaS. And that's like the pinnacle of building a business. And in terms of leverage, of potential leverage, that might actually be true. Like a service is something you render to one client at a time. A productized service, you can do multiple at the same time. And then with the SaaS, you have this scalable system of mostly automated things that you can give to as many people as you can reliably maintain with your technical solution. Let me just take a little sip here. But with that comes a lot of responsibility. And there comes a lot of maintenance that you need to do. One of the reasons that we sold our business was because I was on the verge of burnout. Like I was the only technical person in our business. I was the only person that could handle server maintenance or downtime, or fix the product if the integration failed or something. And we had over 5,000 customers at that point. So if something broke, we were swamped with messages. And it was just Danielle and I, who you've just seen, dealing with the customer service situation, right? We were both the people who were supposed to tell people we're fixing it, and I was the person both talking and fixing. Super stressful. Like if you have a SaaS business and you want to keep it as a lifestyle business, you want to keep it just running as something that generates revenue while you do whatever you want to do, and that thing is not just that business, SaaS is not necessarily the pinnacle for you. An info product selection like the one that I have currently with 2 books and a course, that is so much more enjoyable in terms of time. I get to spend a lot of time with my family. If I take that time, obviously could also spend it with other things, but I have more time to myself and a much looser schedule for the things that I do with these info products compared to a SaaS business where I need to be there 24/7 for every single client, for every single customer, or they won't pay me anymore. Right? It's a different kind of approach. So if you are fine with that, and I again recur to the Indie Hackers podcast episode with Patrick Campbell, where he talks about this. Like if you want to build a business that eventually sells for $200 million, you have to put that focus on. You have to align everything in your life to be able to do this 24/7 for years. And it might not even work out that well for you at that point, right? So you need to have that mindset and to adjust everything around you to be able to do it. If your idea of wealth creation is not spending 24/7 on a SaaS business, if you would like to be there for your kids or your family or just for yourself, spend time doing things, hobbies that you have, things that you like, then you might want to look into other things as well. And other things could be being a consultant for 3 days a week, or creating courses online, doing cohort courses for that matter, where you spend an hour a day with your cohort and the rest of it is handled by a community manager or a VA, something like that. For people who want to build a lifestyle business that is not just work, but is also life, Ladders of Wealth Creation is a very SaaS-focused perspective that may not be for you. And sorry for the tangent, that's also the reason why I don't really look into buying another SaaS on MicroAcquire, because I know once I have it, I would need to maintain it. I would need to spend a lot of time on building that, keeping it, maintaining it, running it. That means less time for myself, less time for my family. And maybe it would then again grow into something that we could sell for millions. Great. But I'm at a point where I don't really want that pressure. Talk to me again in a year or two. Who knows where I'll be? But for now, I will focus on creating more info products because I feel I have impact at a larger scale with these things than I would have with a niche SaaS product at this point. Might be, who knows? But I definitely have impact on the people I care about most, which is other founders and creators like yourselves, right? So that is why MicroAcquire for myself doesn't work. If you want a reliable SaaS business that already works, that already makes money, go to MicroAcquire, look into it. That is my advice in terms of if you want to build one. Because these SaaS businesses, they're not sold because they're not running. They are sold because people want out, because people have found a different project that they want to put more time into, because they have found that they have a job and they can't handle the thing anymore. It still makes them money, and you could be the person that actually turns up the volume to 11 and really makes it going. So MicroAcquire, wonderful platform. And I'm not just saying this because they have been the sponsor for my podcast for the last 25 episodes and will be for the next 28. No. I honestly, MicroAcquire is a platform that I would recommend even if they were not sponsoring my content, right? And this is not a sponsored thing at all at this point. I'm really saying this because Andrew Gazdecki is a great person. By the way, I talked to you in the beginning how Zero to Sold, like in the first minute of the stream, I was talking about how Zero to Sold happened because somebody told me that they would pay money for this thing as a book that I was just doing in blog posts. That was Andrew Gazdecki, the founder of MicroAcquire. Just full circling this at this point. I still have that tweet saved as an image, and it is a highly motivational thing. This guy who didn't know much about me at that point when I just sold my business encouraged me to write a book. And I wrote a book, and now it's 2 years old. And on sale. If you're interested in the book, go to zero-to-sold.com, or in my other stuff, you can go to the links that are currently up there. Let's look into other questions that we have and respond to them. Yeah, Florian was talking about there's little content in SaaS maintenance compared to ideation and building. I think this is absolutely true. For most people have a very easy time talking about the thinky stuff, right? How to like validate, how to figure things out, how to like do thought experiments and build MVPs and stuff. SaaS maintenance is probably one of the most boring things you can talk about because it's one of the most tedious things to do, which is why few people actually talk about it. I obviously had to write about it in Zero to Sold because I'm talking about like these things in let me go to the Zero to Sold website and show you my table of contents here. Where is it? There. If you look at, I start, as you said, I start with all these things on bootstrapping and idea and audience, finding your niche and identifying a critical problem, validating the problem and understanding what the solution is, how it needs to happen, turning it into a product, MVP, how to release, how to making tech choices, tech stacks and stuff. But then over time, I get into the survival stage, right? That's where this is. Does this thing have a full screen mode? That'd be kind of cool. Presentation mode. Oh, yay. This, by the way, is a PDF.js file reader integrated into my website. Anyhow, we look at mental health issues. That's important, and by far not as important as other things in the business that need to be done. SaaS maintenance, and that is here, like in the bottom here, made to stick and extensible product situations where you build integrations and how to maintain them, or power of emission, how to deal with feature requests, how to take features, remove features from your product. And there are a couple other things here, the building part in this part here, like how to prioritize features, how to manage your product under constraints, how to do abstractions in your software, how to have flexible architecture that is easy to maintain. All these things I put in the book because I ran into these problems myself. And I definitely think people should talk about them more, but they are definitely not the most sexy things to talk about, right? Because they're not as actionable to beginners who are likely going to be the top of the funnel of your readers. That's the thing, like, right? Most people who read this book have questions about the first couple chapters because everybody wants to start, right? Everybody does the start part, not the run part, not as many, definitely not as many as sell the book. There are the selling part of the book is really just that much. Like this is the selling part. The ideation part is this much. Almost half of the book is ideation, starting, beginning. Then this part is survival. This part is stability. And this is the growth. Tells you about how much I have to say about these things, right? There's a lot to say in the beginning, fewer things to say later. Now, obviously, there are people out there who talk about this all day long. There are SaaS founders, like if you look at Jack Ellis, who is a co-founder of Fathom Analytics. If you look at his stuff on Twitter, which I highly recommend, he will talk about database maintenance. He will talk about scaling databases, about analytics. Obviously, it's their business. And how to deal with Laravel at scale, how to maintain a business. That is definitely something where you find information. You just have to find the right people. They do this. It's just that many people who give advice, who teach, have to start at zero because everybody is at a different point in their journey, but everybody was at zero at some point. So you have to be able to get people from that and then lift them up into the higher, kind of more complicated topics. So that's why you find more content about this, but you'll find it. You will just have to follow people who are actually walking the walk. Go to Twitter, find people running these businesses who are behind these tech enabled SaaS businesses and who run them, who are CTOs, who are like the coders behind them, follow them, and you will see that content. Just the more you follow educators like myself, the more you will see the kind of how to get started. I try not to do this, right? When I write every week about whatever topic I write about, I try to be so specific that it could be specific for a beginner or specific for somebody who's done this for years. It's just, I try to always be specific and then talk to everybody along the funnel at any given point. This week, I will I have something to say about let me find the topic so it makes sense when I talk about it. The topic this week is sorry for being a bit, it's permission to follow up. It's about audiences. It's about the difference between owned and borrowed audiences, which is something that many beginners might not care about because they are happy with any kind of audience. This is a later stage thing for people who are building a newsletter or podcast, and they have to deal with which social media and or owned audiences should I deal with, and what are the network effects and benefits there. So I try to be specific. Right? Hope that makes sense. All right. Thanks for everybody, by the way, who is still here with me today. We've been doing this for an hour and 40 minutes now. And even if you left and you're looking at what has happened in here in the recording, just thank you for just showing up and hanging out and asking questions. Let me see what other questions we had. What was the motivation for you to start working for yourself? Well, there are 2 times in my life where I did this. The first time was when I dropped out of university and I needed some way of paying the bills. I started consulting. It's really what I did. Worked for an agency for a while, and then World of Warcraft happened, and then I started consulting because that I could spend a couple days a week doing this and spend the rest of the time doing whatever I wanted. The motivation was I never really particularly enjoyed employment. I believe that employment is a very risky activity because look at what happened at the beginning of the pandemic and now with the recession, again, people are losing their jobs that they thought they had job security in. And I feel there's very little security in having one thing that if you lose it, you have no money at all. Daniel Vassallo has this approach called many small bets. And this is a small bet. This is a small bet. My course is a small bet. The consulting I regularly do is a small bet. The mentoring I sometimes do is a small bet. My appearance and talks at conferences, they are a small bet. All these channels, my investments are a small bet. All of these things trickle in revenue, right? So if one falls off, I can replace it with another one. I can spend time to recuperate. If I lose my one job, I have no money coming in and I need to frantically look for a job. Never liked that perspective. Never enjoyed being at somebody else's command. It's just not for me. So I've been a freelancer and a consultant for a while. And then I took a job because I really liked the team. And in that situation, we actually were compensated with shares as well. So I had some ownership in the whole thing. But after a couple of years, feedback kind of happened because I just wanted to do something by myself. And after we sold that business, my motivation to build this media business, essentially that what you're looking at with the books and the course and my presence on Twitter and all over the place, that was motivated by me wanting to own the means of production for myself. I wanted to have stuff that makes money for me and for me alone. And I wanted to be responsible for that. And I wanted to be able to diversify at the same time, which is something that I can't do if I'm beholden to somebody else's opinion of what I should be doing. Hence my own business. And the Bootstrap Founder is that, right? It correlates all these channels, the articles, the newsletters, the podcasts, the books, all of them into one. So that is where my motivation comes from. Willingness to reap the fruits of my own labor the fullest as possible. Because if you work for somebody else, you're essentially creating wealth for them and they pay you a monthly fee for doing it. Essentially, that's what it is. But if you work for yourself, it's different. You have this whole potential to make a lot of money. You also have the potential to have disaster happen to yourself, right? Like that is also a problem. I actually wrote an article on this on my blog as well. Let me see if I can find it. It's kind of the inversion of the ladders of wealth creation, because I feel there is just something problematic about glorifying one thing and seeing everything else as stepping stones towards it. There is no one size fits all, particularly not in entrepreneurship. And that means if I can diversify the opinions that people have and say, hey, for you, maybe writing a book is the best way. And you build a business, you build like a service business to get there. You consult, you get all this experience, and then you turn it into an info product, a course, right? Maybe great. Or maybe you write what you know and turn that into a little white paper ebook, and you get consulting clients with that, and you create an agency from that. Wonderful. Or you do some freelancing, and through freelancing you see all these little problems, and you build a SaaS business, and you grow that SaaS business, and then you have that. All of these things are valuable. It's just what fits your style the most. What can you diversify a portfolio into, and how can you make this something that you actually want to keep doing for a decade or two? So I'm gonna show you this article, and I'm gonna maybe put this article in chat if this is possible. Which I don't think I can, honestly, but you'll see it. It's right here. It's called Passive Income and Entrepreneurship. It's episode 111 of my podcast, and it's about I write about the spectrum between active and passive income, right? Where you start with your first job, the money you make, and then you go into services. You create a service that you can sell. You productize the service, and then you start diversifying into many other things, automating things, and have passive income and semi-passive income, like a SaaS business where you still need to work on it. And passive income doesn't exist, right? You still need to make money with marketing. You still need to sell things to people. But the idea is, go to the bootstrapfounder.com and go to passive income and entrepreneurship. That will be, maybe will help you like reset your perspective on diversifying your income situation and what to do. All right. Okay. Going to find my following. I hope you will find your following, because it's not that hard. You just have to be an interesting person for people to find you interesting. And you have to just engage with people. You just have to be there for people and help them. Be supportive, be kind, like be nice to people, give them something without asking for anything in return, and just give them an opportunity to grow, and they will never forget it. And that's how you find your following. Like, surround yourself with people like you, follow them, engage with their conversations, and over time they will become your following. That's kind of, that is like my $50/$25 course, Find Your Following, in a nutshell. Be nice, go to ongoing conversations, contribute without asking for anything in return, do selfless self-promotion, like promote your stuff like with other people in mind, not just yourself, and show up every day. There you go. Just that is what you will learn with Find Your Following. That's really the course. Of course, we'll go into detail how to build in public and how to create a Twitter bio and all that stuff. But that is pretty much what the course is about, and that is why I made it, because I want more people to be nice to other people and then build a following from there. What are my thoughts about Shopify apps? 1 second. Gonna drink some coffee for that one. Delicious. Amazing. And risky. Let's balance these out. Shopify is a wonderful ecosystem, because if you look at existing Shopify apps, if you look into their app store, their integration directory, you will see so many niche products, like incredibly niche things that you would never think of for an e-commerce store. Like package tracking with very specific features for very specific things, like guns that they send internationally, or high value objects, or whatever it is, right? There are very, very cool things that you never thought people would pay money for. But if they are on the Shopify integration directory and they have a price and they have installs, that is a signal that people pay money for it. There's budget for this stuff, which is why I like to browse that place just to see that it's possible. Shopify apps are great. Now, you have to find something that is really a critical problem for somebody in their online store, their e-commerce chain, which is what you usually can find out the easiest if you go into the communities. And again, I wrote a whole book about this idea, right? The embedded entrepreneur is embedding yourself in communities and building business solutions for people from there. And you can find out what people need if you just listen to them complain about stuff. If you listen to them where they're trying to optimize, and then build something that helps them optimize for that. Now, if you do that, great. If you don't really know what to build and you're just trying to build something, that's going to be problematic. But if you know who needs it, where they are and what they need, Shopify apps are great. The only risk I see is the same risk that I see with browser extensions and with plugins for any kind of tool, and that is platform dependency. If you build on a platform like Shopify, if you build on YouTube, if you build on the Google Chrome extension store, or if you, whatever it is, the platform dictates if you have a business or not. And for monetization, that is usually problematic. Like any iOS developer can tell you that it sucks that Apple has the walled garden. They pay 30% of whatever in-app purchases they have to Apple because Apple said so. Not because it's feasible, not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's the only choice they have. That is a problem with any platform you build on. First off, they dictate the terms of your engagement, and they also dictate if you're allowed on it or not. Now, Feedback Panda had a browser extension, and that was probably the thing I struggled with most, because the browser extension needed to be on the Chrome store and on the Firefox store and on the Microsoft Edge browser extension store, which is a whole other story, but let's just... it needed to be there, and it needed to be updated every now and then, because we were integrating into platforms that themselves didn't really have integration. So we kind of hooked ourselves into these web apps and integrated with them any way we could. And if they changed their app, we needed to change our browser extension. Now, if you update a browser extension, it goes through a lengthy review process, and the review process is hit or miss. And again, any iOS developer will tell you that story. Sometimes the code you submitted verbatim the week before will be blocked by a reviewer because they think they don't like it. And the same thing happens to browser extensions, and the same thing will happen to Shopify apps. If you do something that the reviewer du jour, the guy or girl that is sitting there just with their job is looking through these extensions saying yay or nay to having them on the store, if they have a bad day and they say no, your whole extension might be taken down. The whole reason of your business existing might not be available to your customers. Super risky. It's like the one thing that if it breaks, everything is gone. And every browser extension vendor eventually understands that and then turns their browser extension into a standalone product. You see this with Grammarly, right? The kind of the browser extension thing that checks your text areas where you enter your text for correct grammar and spelling and stuff. They have a standalone app. You see the YouTube extensions too, like YouTube channel optimizing apps. They have standalone stuff too, where you log in and then it essentially pulls up YouTube in their own little self-contained browser, and then they inject the extension. It takes a whole lot of effort to do this right. The platform risk is significant. And if you build a business on this, you better, from the beginning, try to find a way to own the audience of your customers, to get their email address so you can contact them if the platform cuts off your access for whatever reason they might have, and B, diversify your product so it works outside of the main platform that needs to be supported as well. Again, build your own standalone Electron app that injects the browser extension manually into a website. I have done that for Feedback Panda, by the way, because they moved their classroom into an Electron app. So I built an Electron app that injected a browser extension into a running Electron app so that we could have our browser extension in their software, which, don't ask, it was a weird story. But those two things are important, right? Get your audience, turn it into an owned audience. You might want to check in this Friday when I release my article about this topic, because I talk about the benefits and how to turn a borrowed audience, a Twitter audience or LinkedIn or Facebook, into an owned audience, which is an email list essentially, or a list of phone numbers or whatever you might need. That is important, both of these. So that is platform risk. You need to de-risk your platform-based app. Then Shopify apps, Google Chrome extensions, wonderful. But make sure you understand the risk involved. What order would you consume your paid content in? If you want to build a business and build an audience, I would highly recommend you to go through Find Your Following, my Twitter course, at first. That's the one on the right here. because that is really just the most actionable thing you can start today. The build in public thing in particular is interesting because if you want to build a business, the third part of Find Your Following is all about building in public, how to build in public, what to talk to people about, where to find things to share, these things, right? So that is very actionable. You listen to the 4.5 hours of video with my voice getting more and more hoarse over time. Enjoy, and you will immediately have something to do. Start your Twitter account, start your audience building journey. That is what you can do immediately. Then I would recommend reading the first, let's say third of Find Your Following. Find Your Following is really about the initial phase of building a business, has everything in there. How to build an MVP, how to think of pricing, how to ideate, how to come up with a business idea, how to understand solutions, products, and problems. That kind of stuff is very specific in here. Once you have done the first third of this book, once the survival stage starts, I would recommend going into this because this is the actionable part of how to go into a community and source problems, ideas, and audiences pragmatically from right in there. This is kind of a long-term exercise, right? If you start by following the advice in the Embedded Entrepreneur, you will have a database of problems that you will just accumulate over time to find the right one to solve. And once you're done with this, which also the latter part of this is kind of a Twitter course, which will coincide with many of the things that I talk about in Find Your Following, so you will know them already. You can mostly skip that. But the initial parts is finding the right people to serve and empower and how to figure out their problems, how to join their communities. That's that. Once you're done with that, back to Zero to Sold, and then just use that as a guidebook as you go through your journey. You don't need to read the whole thing to start a business. The first couple chapters will be enough to get you going. And then once you get to a point where you wonder, should I hire somebody? Or you wonder, customer service at scale, how does that work? Go into the chapters and read them as they happen. I would really take this more as a manual than something you need to finish to begin with. Because you can read all the books in the world. If you don't start working on it, nothing's going to happen. So that's the order. Find Your Following, first half of Zero to Sold, Embedded Entrepreneur, second half of Zero to Sold. A bit complicated, but that's just the reality. That's what it is. All right. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being here for the whole time. That is really cool. That is for somebody's very first live stream to have somebody be there, not just you, but everybody else who's also here for 2 hours plus. That is, thanks. Yes, released an executive pitch for the show. Let me find out where this is coming from. Free desktop and mobile PDFs. If you've read it and reached out, but none have subscribed even to the email list. Yes, that is. That sounds like there is a disconnect between what people expect and what you gave them, right? One of the problems with having people sign up to an email list is that giving permission to follow up is something that people rarely do, right? Everybody gets spammed and people hate it. Everybody keeps their email address as a secret. People, even like when people subscribe to my newsletter, I see them using catch-all addresses or addresses where they have like a plus and put the name of my newsletter in there, so they know that if that ever got leaked, who's responsible for it. Obviously, I'm not going to do that, not going to sell emails, but some people do. And people get very careful in handing over their email address. So having somebody hand over their email is probably one of the most private things you can ask of a stranger on the internet in terms of a business proposition. So you really, really have to give them something meaningful before that for them to see, okay, this might be worth the risk of me getting spammed in the future. And what I would say here is to expand your vision of what you're doing in terms of capturing the people for that list. It's not just a PDF. And then people want the PDF and they trade you their email. What you have to build with every single one of these people is an actual relationship at scale. It's going to be taking a lot of time and work, but you have to give them stuff outside of the transactional act of free PDF download for email. That is a transaction. And people don't transact with people they don't trust. Trust building needs to happen before you ask for the email. That is something you can do by having a public brand that people recognize. And I'm doing this right now, right? I'm trying to by making this conversation available, both live right now and for everybody who's watching this in the future, this is something where they get to see me and they get to judge, is this guy legit or is he not? Is he trying to sell me stuff or is he actually trying to help people? And it's up to you to judge that. But I'm trying to make available the notion that I'm actually in this to help people, right? And if you have to do this outside of the transaction, you have to do this outside of your email newsletter sign up form, because today personal brands and the trust that comes with them, that they drive the conversions. It's not that your copy in your newsletter sign up form is good or not. Barely matters. What matters is that people go to the sign up form because they trust you already. So this might take some more work than changing. And honestly, you're also saying you have trouble connecting with the bulk of your currently 100 plus audience. What should I be looking at and change? 100 people in any audience is very, very, very small, right? It's the beginning of an audience, but it's definitely very small. When I think about Twitter, that's one of the most insulting things about Twitter, by the way, is if you have 100 people who follow you and you tweet something, 10 people get to see it and maybe 1 or 2 people interact with it. It's one of the most distressing things as a creator, is to know that, like, I read different accounts. Somewhere between 5 and 40% of the people, depending on how big of your audience is, will see your content. Even see it. Not engage with it. See it. And then a fraction of these people engage with it. So what you should be doing to increase the chance that people interact with you is just grow your audience. Like, find more people to follow and who should follow you. Now, I'm just going to give you a little crash course that I just take out of Find Your Following here. I do a thing in the beginning when I had barely any followers. I did a thing I call audience audition, right? The audience audition is the process of going to an ongoing conversation on Twitter. Somebody else already has a conversation going about some topic and then contributing to that ongoing conversation. I used Twitter in the beginning as a means of engagement, and I rarely ever tweeted myself. I did more replies than I did tweets. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to go to a tool called Blackmagic. Blackmagic is a Twitter analytics tool that I use for a lot of things. I actually use it. If I go to my Twitter feed right now, you will see it here in the top right. I use it for many, many different things. I use it for what are my most recent interactions, like stuff like that. If you go to the homepage, it shows you like what are my stats for today, my tweets, how they perform, what my engagement hours are, and so on. But Blackmagic also has a tool called Glance, and you will see this here. I really highly recommend you using this tool. I have an affiliate link. Not going to put it in here. I'm just going to tell you to go to the website and use it. Glance. Please, Glance, would you kindly go to where you're supposed to be? Glance is a tool that allows you to look into any Twitter account and see what they're doing, how they're doing, how much they're tweeting, how much they're commenting, how much they're replying, how much they're retweeting, all these kind of things. And it sometimes takes a while to load, so bear with me here. But the idea behind, let me just try to manually go to this. Glance. Let's go to me. The idea behind this is to understand how people that are successful are doing Twitter. You can learn from this free tool, by the way. This is completely free. Tony Dean has been creating incredibly amazing free tools. From this data, you can infer a number of things. And you will still see that once this pulls up, what my current data situation is. I try to avoid tweeting a lot and to focus on engaging a lot. Replies, comments. That is what I focus most of my time on. And I try to retweet a little too, but when I retweet, I always try to do that with quote tweets, with giving people additional comments at the same time. That is my approach to Twitter, and that's what I teach and Find Your Following as well. The idea is to make sure that everything you do on Twitter is engagement focused. Because if people see you engaged, they're going to be interested in you and they might follow you. If people only see you blast out tweets with supposedly interesting things, they might not be interested. But if you engage with them in ongoing conversations where they're already chatting, then you look like a person they would want to keep chatting with in the future. That's what the audience audition is. And I'm sorry that this is currently not working. Apparently, there's always some data fetching in the background there with this tool. I'll just leave it on. I'm going to see if it works later. Show you if it should or when it does work. Focus on just replies. Like, that will help you build a bigger following at this point and a more engaged following too. Because the people that follow you because you chatted with them, they're going to be much more interested in what you have to say than the people who follow you because you appeared in their timeline or you were in the little box on the side or somebody retweeted something of yours and they thought, oh yeah, maybe interesting. The people that you have an actual connection with because you went to, I don't know, I tweet something and there's a discussion and you join that conversation. You contribute something meaningful, not anything, but something really useful. The people you talk to, they will remember that. And if you do that over and over again, they will keep remembering that, they will follow you. And this is how you build an engaged audience, really, by engaging. It's not really surprising. So yeah, there you go. I hope that helps. Find Your Following has all of this, right? Even the Find Your Following Essentials, the now $9 version of this course has this, right? But also the bigger one, the full course, has it too. And by the way, for anybody wondering, Find Your Following, the full course includes the essentials too. So you get 4.5 hours of video plus another hour of video. So both of these things happen at the same time. Thanks, Dylan, for the purchase. Makes me very happy. Let's take a look at Gumroad right now. Oh yeah, that's not too bad. If you look at those numbers. The last one happened 14 minutes ago, and this is like 20 minutes ago. Gumroad today, let's look at my dashboard. We are at $808. Isn't that nice? Yeah, I am. And for anyone in here, if you have a specific question about anything that I say in my books, my course, or this very stream, or any other video that I put out there, reach out to me. My DMs are open on Twitter. It's probably better if you follow me and I follow you because then I see them right away. And I probably likely already follow you. If not, send me a DM anyway. Send me a message. I'll try to get back to you. I can tell you one thing. At 70,000 followers, DMs are a bit of a spectacle, but I will try to respond in time eventually to all messages that I get. Don't spam me with stuff, but just send a message. Thanks for the purchase too. Mostly, it's very, very nice to see this. And I am, again, any questions, send them my way. Okay, let's see. Did we have any other question here? Otherwise, I'm just going to keep talking. I think I'm going to keep running the stream for another hour or so. So if you have anything from the book that you would like me to read, tell me. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about stuff, which is what I like to do. We had Shopify apps. We had this problem. All right, cool. Yep. If there's nothing else, I'm just going to go into another topic that I want to talk about because I can. And that will be, let me just pull up my little list here of all the cool topics that I'm interested in and wanted to talk about. Building a sellable business. I think many people buy these books because they want to have not just a business, but they want to have a business that in turn creates wealth for them, that they can sell, right? A business that changes their life, like it did with me. And building a sellable business is one of the most reliable ways of doing this. I feel here's a thinking tip. Like, you don't have to sell a sellable business. Maybe that helps you to get to find this approach more interesting. You can keep building that business. You can grow that business into a unicorn or whatnot. You don't have to sell it. But a sellable business, and that's one of the core things that Built to Sell, the book by John Warlow, taught me. A sellable business is a good business because it's sellable, and a good business is sellable because it's good. They are the same thing. A well-run business is a sellable business. And, if you optimize for either, you optimize for the other. And there are two ways how you can do this. And obviously, in anything I write about building businesses, those things are my focus because I want people to build sellable businesses. That is focused on automation and documentation. And if you're just thinking, wow, this is the most boring thing, you're right. But it's also the most high impact thing. Automating away as much as you can will allow you to easily transition the business over to somebody else because people don't need to be involved as much. And documenting everything you can will allow you to most easily transition the business over to somebody else. One of the things that I love about the book, The E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber, is one particular sketch or one little diagram he has in the book. And it's a diagram of a hierarchy of a business. It's a kind of an org chart of the business. And he has the name of the business owner on top, draws a line, and then puts the CEO, the name of the CEO beneath, and then he goes into all the different kind of categories. The idea behind this exercise is to envision your business 5 years in the future, just when you're starting it, but like, how would it look like 5-10 years in the future? How many people would work in there, and what would the little roles be, and who can do them now, right? That's the idea, like to figure out what you need to be doing in the business. But the important part is the line, because the line is between owner and operator. The operators of the business, including the CEO and the COO and CMCF, whatever O's you have, those people work in the business. The owner works on the business or not at all. And the owner of a business will always own the business. Right? That's the idea. And if you can move this whole org chart, remove yourself from this org chart just into the owner position, then you essentially have an asset that is generating revenue for you that you don't need to do anything for. Because usually most businesses work like this, right? In the beginning, all the founders do all the work. Then you have these org charts, and they go from like CTO down to programmer, front-end developer, back-end developer, whatever. And the CTO is going to do all of these things in the beginning. But maybe at some point, you're going to hire your first software engineer, your front-end engineer. You have that role that currently has the CTO's name. Now you strike the CTO's name, you put the name of the other guy in there. So the CTO just moves the responsibility up a little bit. And over time, like you exchange or you turn all of these little roles that are done by the founder into somebody else's job. And now all of a sudden the founder is only doing the CTO job. And then maybe you hire a CTO. You pay them a couple $1,000 a month and they still generate way more revenue. Now, all of a sudden, you are just the CEO of the business. And now you actually hire a CEO, and now you're just the owner. And that means you own the business. Everybody else is doing all the work they're paid for, right? They're generating wealth for you, and they get paid for it. That's the dream. And building a business that allows you to remove yourself into that position, that is how you build a good business. Because anything you can do to remove yourself from any of these spots, even CEO, makes this thing easier to hand over. Obviously, right? If you have a business that is run by mostly either machines or somebody else, well, you can just hand over ownership, and that business can be then kept running by somebody else, and they will compensate you for the value of the potential wealth being generated by that business. So building a sellable business means about removing yourself from the business. It's really the shortest way I can phrase it. And automation does that, and documentation does that. Automation does it by actually removing the work, right? We had a lot of customer service stuff. That's the thing we automated most. We used Intercom, and Intercom has a knowledge base that integrates with that chat system. So whenever somebody would ask us a question, if that question had been asked before, it would pull in the article and immediately suggest that. And if people asked a new question, we would immediately start documenting that question by creating a new knowledge base article that would then be automatically pulled in when the next person would ask the question. Do this every time somebody asks a new question. And over time, we had 200 questions answered. And most of the time, people would ask the same questions over and over again. We wouldn't have to touch customer service. They would help themselves because we took the time to write an in-depth help desk article on that particular issue. How do I log in? How do I delete a student? How do I create a new piece of feedback? These little individual questions, video, like screenshots, good explanations, step-by-step stuff, put that in the knowledge base, they pulled it in, solved their own problem. We would never have to touch it, which is why Danielle and I could run a business with 5,000 concurrent customers that all use the product the exact same way. That is the power of automation. And documentation, I just mentioned it, allows you to feed your automated systems, and it also makes you more efficient. Because I started automating a lot of things, but I would still need to manually deploy software. Not like manually in a sense that I would copy files from A to B, but I would manually need to log into the system and then click that update button and whatnot, right? And for these things, I built very stringent and clear documentation. Log into AWS. Click on the, EC2 button or whatever we were using, Google Cloud, and, log into with this account. The password for that is there, and step by step. Then use this command, upload this file, click submit, and that's the deployment. By doing this, I allowed myself to trust the process and not make mistakes doing it. Because there's nothing worse than running a software business and then just messing up the deployment and everything breaks. Process helps. Building process, standard operating procedures really, for every single little thing we did. How to send our monthly bookkeeping stuff to our bookkeeper, process. Download this file, go to that page, download these invoices, bundle up in zip file, send over to this email address. Process done. These things allow you to build a manual. Like a franchising manual. If you want to open a McDonald's restaurant, you have to rent it from them and, make the McDonald's people rich. But they give you this franchise manual, which says, here is how you McDonald's. And it has every single thing. Here's how a Big Mac works. Here's how you optimize your griddle. Here is how you fill a ketchup bottle. And here is how you break your ice cream machine every time, apparently. So all these things are in the manual. And you can create this manual for your own business, for yourself, to be more efficient, to optimize your own process, and then to just hand it over to somebody else, like we did with SureSwift Capital, the private equity company that acquired our business, and say, there you go. Here's your business. Money, please. That's how you do it. So that is building a sellable business. Automation and documentation. Obviously, there's way more. Again, I wrote a book about it. Let me just conveniently place that here. But that's the idea. That's the idea of building a sellable business. So I recommend looking at anything you do when you build a business through that lens, right? The idea is to always consider, how can I make this thing sellable from the start and in the future? Because you can sell it at any point. Like we got offers for Feedback Panda in the middle of our journey and we didn't sell. And we got offers at Feedback Panda at the end of our journey and then we did sell. But it was always sellable. It was always out there for people to find too. Maybe that's the third point. If you want to have a sellable business, well, you first you have to have a sellable business structurally, but you also have to make it available to be sold at some point. So if you want to eventually have people acquire your business, put yourself out there, build in public, share your revenue. We did that on the Indie Hackers product page. We coupled the Stripe revenue to that. If you don't want to share your revenue too much, that's also fine. You can still give updates with like rough estimates. I wrote an article on that issue too, because at a certain point, sharing the specifics of your business becomes risky. But that is like $20,000, $30,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And most businesses are not there just yet. So I guess sharing up till this point is going to leave good and interesting traces of your success over time. And that's kind of what you want. You want people to see, oh yeah, these people have been around and have been growing. Might be interesting to follow along. That's how it happened for us. So leave these traces. That is usually a very good idea. All right. Let's look at another question. So you mentioned embedding yourself in the community and looking for problems they face. Do you cover on how to find a community to join? At the moment, I suppose I should expand my interest because gaming and coding seem quite saturated. The community, my Twitter is made up is of mostly founders and also solving their problems. Ha! Love this. The embedded entrepreneur is exactly about this. So let's look at this. Apparently, I've been trying to get Glance going, but apparently this thing is there we go. Okay, let me just answer my thing that I wanted to talk about earlier, and then get to your community question. This is the distribution that I have in activities. These are my tweets. That's like 20 some %. That's how much I tweet. The blue thing is my replies. Like over 60% of what I do is replies. Like that is my focus on Twitter, by the way. And then there's retweets and retweeting my own stuff. And then there's also threads, which I barely do. This is my secret. My secret is engagement and focusing on engagement at most of the time. My other secret, a lot of automation in there too. Right. And tweeting from my phone. It's maybe, but yeah, that's that is kind of what I wanted to show you. It's just kind of focus on replies. By the way, if you use Glance, which I recommend, on any account that you find interesting, you get to see the people they frequently engage with. So if you're interested in doing the audience audition that I talked about earlier, finding these cool people that have these conversations going that you can join, go to an account like mine if you like it, or anybody else who's a big person in your industry, follow them and follow the frequently engaged people that they hang out with. That usually gives you access to an even bigger audience and cool conversations because they already engage, right? These are people that engage. You follow them and you follow the people they engage with. You follow a lot of engaged people. That will mean a lot of conversations, a lot of opportunity for you to engage with. Always a good idea. So yeah, that's Blackmagic's Glance. That's great. Let's go to the embedded entrepreneur. I wanted to share with you this particular table of contents here as well. Presentation mode. So here we go. The Embedded Entrepreneur is a book that I wrote because people asked me how to get started. And I wanted to share with them an approach that I've seen work for myself and for people that I mentor and consult for. So in a second, I will start telling you how that works. Cold coffee. The audience discovery part is what I start this book with. And that's a 5-step process that I have for people who don't yet know who they want to build a business for, but know that they do want to build a business for somebody. And the audience discovery process is really about figuring out what potential niche audiences you could serve if you wanted to. Having a big list of them. And then step by step, going through each of these items and looking at certain parameters, right? Do you like working with these people? Are there opportunities in the space? Is it a big market, small market, just right? Or do people have money? Do people spend money in this space? And all of these are questions, as you can see in these steps. Awareness starts with like figuring out who you might actually want to help, and then going through affinity. Do I like them? Opportunity. Do they have problems? Appreciation. Do they have budget? And size. Is the market big enough for me? And then you tally the results, take the one with the biggest number and start engaging in their communities. I'll get to that in a second. The first step, the audience awareness. That's probably the one that is the hardest to do, because we all kind of think, and you just said this, right? I'm just going to go back here. You said you have gaming and coding communities, and your Twitter community is founders. Those are 3 interesting communities. Let's look into this. Let's look into this some more. In this book, from which I will now read, because why not? I could do whatever I want. I talk about awareness, and I'm going to start here. To find a niche audience that will allow you to build a great business, you will first need to become aware of it. Some niches are clearly visible, and some of them are somewhat hidden. This step is concerned with finding them. The goal of this step is to find a group of people you want to help. It should be a well-defined group, best centered around a common interest or activity. And you have that already, right? Gaming and coding and founders, but we'll get to that. If you can't easily find communities for this group, don't worry. The important thing at this stage is to be that you are aware of who they are and what they are about. Because community finding, funny enough, comes later, but it does come. An existing tribe works best. Tribes consist of people who share an interest, are highly interconnected, and follow the same leaders. That's the Seth Godin definition of tribes. And if you don't know who Seth Godin is, or you don't listen to his podcast Akimbo religiously every week, you should, and read his books. Like, Seth Godin has an incredibly empowerment-centric perspective on building businesses and marketing. Please follow that man and his blog and his work. It really makes a difference on how you approach building businesses and building community. people in a tribe make for wonderful niche audiences. You might be a part of quite a few tribes at this moment already. And Seth Godin uses a wonderful definition for tribes. People like us do things like this. Start with yourself, then expand from your inner circle towards the outer boundaries of the people you know. Ask yourself. And here are a couple of questions that can actually help you with finding these communities. And I really recommend just making a list, either on paper or in a Word document or wherever. Here's my list. You can see this as an example in the book. It's just a couple of people, of communities or audiences that I find interesting. What tribes do you belong to? First question. What communities are you part of consciously, right? Because you participate, like being a chess club member or being a software engineer, we'll get to that. Or unconsciously by affiliation, like being a sports fan. What communities are you in? It can involve virtual communities and real world groups alike. What tribes do you belong to? Go through that in a calm moment and just list all the tribes that you feel you belong to. Then, what hobbies do you have? What do you enjoy enough to spend money on? Budget, even though it's not essential. Examples here are things like craft beer or good coffee or fixing old cars. These kind of things. Find activities that you have a budget for. Next question, what has been your lifestyle in the past? Because you have a history, right? How did you find things to do every weekend back when you were in college or just starting working professionally? What groups did you hang out with then? And what was it that they found exciting to do? Can you reconnect with those groups? Is there something in your past that you know something about that could influence who you're serving, who you're going to be serving in the future? Next, the obvious thing that you already talked about, what professions do you have, right? What kinds of jobs have you been doing throughout your life? What types of professional communities have you been part of? That can be coder, that can be software engineer, that can be JavaScript engineer, that can be JavaScript front-end engineer, that can be JavaScript React front-end engineer. Specificity matters. List all of them, because depending on which one you eventually choose, the specificity of that will also impact the opportunities in the space, the budget, the market size, and all of that stuff. Be liberal. Just make a big old list. I recommend doing like 100 or more of these audiences, because the more the merrier. And once you go through these steps, you will whittle them down quite quickly. But be verbose at this point. Put a lot of work into this. What companies do you work for? Which companies are you a customer of? Think of all the different businesses you interact with and mentally categorize them into groups they belong to, and then write them down. At this point, like as an example right now, what companies am I a business of, or what businesses am I a customer of? I use OBS, open source company to stream software. So I'm kind of in the software streaming space. That is interesting. Streamers, streamer software builders, people who advertise on streams, people who build plugins for streaming software, streaming platforms. All of these are potential audiences. Write them down. And that's just one thing, right? On the other hand, I have the script, which I use to edit my videos. So you have video editors. You have video editing software producers. You have people who need to edit videos quickly for YouTube. You can come up with these groups quite quickly if you just spend some time thinking about it. And this is a brainstorming exercise. You don't need to have all of these things, have a product or anything for it. Just list audiences. Again, you're going to get rid of most of them later. Next question. What is your significant other doing, if you have one? What groups do they belong to that are different from your groups? What groups did they belong to before you met? This goes for current significant others, past ones, and then also extends to family, obviously. What do your parents do? What do your siblings do? What jobs are they working in? What groups do they hang out with for fun? What are the things that you talk about at family gatherings, about which they have surprising levels of insight, because that can help you build something for those communities? What are your social circles that you're in? What kinds of people do you interact with? Think of parties, meetups, gatherings that you go to, professional and private. List these groups of people. And then reflect on your past experiences, even if you may not interact with them recently or have interacted with them recently. Your past is a good and interesting part of your community building efforts. Now, next, one of the things that I actually wanted to read you this for, another way of finding audiences that you might not already be aware of is by looking at the things around you. For every object you see, think about who made it, how they made it, who it is for, and how they use it. While 1 and 4, who made it and how they use it, gives you an audience immediately. 2 and 3, how they made it and who it is for, allow you to think about the interactions that this object went through either while it was being made. Think of all the many businesses and activities involved in the production chain of something just like a sheet of paper, right? You have the forestry, you have logging, you have paper mills, distribution, sales, marketing. All of these are interesting. Or while it's being used. Let's stick with the paper example. Pen makers, printer factories, publishers, editors, book club organizers, wedding table card printers. All of these interact with paper. There's a lot of industries that overlap here. Most object, when examined like that, will bring to mind a few dozen audiences. And that is one of the best tricks I've ever found. Let's look at this. Microphone. Who uses microphones? Singers. Opera singers, pop singers, well, musicians, classical musicians, indie musicians, probably voice actors, narrators, actors in general, people recording podcasts, people recording YouTube videos. And from all of these, you can just go into detail. Okay, podcasts. Let's look at that. You have podcast producers, podcast editors. You have podcast owners, people who want to sponsor podcasts, people who have a podcast and are looking for sponsors, people who have a podcast and need a platform to host that podcast, people who are podcast platform hosts and need to find new people to host their podcasts for. All one thing, and that is just one avenue, right? I didn't even look into how it was being produced or marketed, because these things are being sold on Amazon or on in shops that handle electronics, and they might need specific things. We were talking about Shopify apps earlier that you could help them with in building a business for. Every object has this capacity. If you look at your phone, same story. If you look at a book, right? Editors, proofreaders, writers, readers, publishers, self-publishers, people who work at publishers that go through this pile of things they then reject. Then, you have all these gigantic amounts of audiences, and you just list all of them. And then you go through those lists through the eyes of one particular parameter. Do I like this? Would I want to keep working on this for a couple of years? You rank all of the audiences you have, you think about it shortly, and just put a number, 1 to 10. Put a 4 in there if you don't really care. Put a 10 if you love it. I love entrepreneurs. They get a 10 from me every time. Coders, they get an 8, because software engineers are a notoriously hard market to get into because they like solving problems. Like, tell me any other audience that would love to solve the problem that you're trying to solve for them. Hard to sell them something if they enjoy solving things. So they don't usually get high scores for me. But writers, I want to help writers. Don't want to help people who work in, nursing too much. Even though I have nurses in the family, I don't have a relationship with that too much. They're probably going to get a 5. And so you have this list, and anything under 5 you just get rid of immediately, right? I could build stuff for lawyers, could build stuff for tax advisors. Is not my audience. I'm not going to go through this even further. And then you look at opportunities. For each of the things that remain, you just do a quick search. You find existing software as a service solutions in the field, and you see, are they interesting? Are the problems that these people solve interesting? Are there interesting conversations in subreddits where these people hang out? And then you go through these, give them a ranking again, and you do the next thing. Is there budget? Do people already pay for stuff? Or is everything that I find about free solutions? Right? If people pay for this, great. If they don't, maybe not the perfect market. Then you look into market size. Are there enough people for me to build a business with? And that's usually something that either you do research or you just guesstimate. Because software engineers, obviously, how many people will use, Elixir as a programming language. You just need to go to HexPM, which is their package manager, and see how many people download certain packages in a given day. Gives you kind of clear indication of how many people out there use this product, right? Or this programming language. And you do this with every single group, and then you have four numbers. You add them up, and you have a final number. You sort by highest number, and you have a couple audiences on the top that will indicate these are the people that I like to work with the most, that have the most interesting opportunities, that have the most noticeable budget in those opportunities, and the market is a good size. Again, it's all in the book. And then you go into their communities. And that's what I talk about in this book in particular. First of all, I talk about what communities are, what kinds of communities are out there, because there are many, many different kinds of communities, right? There are, we're going to go through this. Honestly, that's why we have this here. There are forms of communities that they're event-based communities, location-based communities. There are profession-based communities, practice-based communities. They're all different, and they all have different ways of communicating. The book goes into detail, and then also goes into, and you find that, what is it, page 59 and so on, community platforms. I talk about Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. What else do I talk about? Lots of platforms. Many, many different communities, formal communities, podcast communities, online forums, Discord. I talk about Slack communities, where to find them, Reddit, which is a whole thing all in itself, YouTube communities, cross-community communication, Pinterest. It's all in here. And I give some advice on how to get into those communities, and then how to go into problem discovery, which you see right there, right? The idea of sourcing interesting problems from communities and ranking them so that you can take this and turn it into a product and build a product with and for an audience, and build an audience in the same process. So that's what the Embedded Entrepreneur is about. That's what this book comes with, not just a book. Like if you go to Gumroad, it has a toolkit as well. Like in that toolkit, wonder where the picture is. There are Notion documents, plenty of documents, like audience discovery spreadsheet, where I do this exercise. My version's in that too, if you're interested. Problem discovery tracking, so you can kind of track problems in the communities that you're in, and then just like audience building, schedule checklists, and just lots of different tools, all in the toolkit, all in Gumroad, and it's all 50% off today. Isn't that nice? So yeah, that's what I would recommend you doing. Like, find your audience by doing this brainstorming exercise, and then go into their communities, embed yourself, and listen. Most important thing, listen, shut up and listen for a bit. And then start slowly building engagement with people in those communities. Doesn't have to be coders, doesn't have to be software engineers of a particular kind, doesn't have to be gamers, doesn't have to be founders either. When you build in public, by the way, you're always going to do it in front of other founders, because it's like half of building in public is doing it in front of your founder peer group. The other half is doing it in front of your prospective customers. Balancing that, not too easy, but it can be done. That's all in Find Your Following as well, and a little bit in the Embedded Entrepreneur too, in these audience buildings chapters. That is going to be in there too. But important part, be part of the community and listen to people talking. They will complain, they will ask for help, they will ask for recommendations, and they will ask for alternatives. All four of these indicate a problem. If you track it the right way, you will find the things that are most critical, and you can start solving this problem with people in the community to begin with, like actually helping them solve their own problems, and then turn it into a business and into a product. That's my approach, and I've seen it work. Obviously, people recommend the book, so it can't be that wrong. But the idea here is to turn this whole idea-first approach of people, I want to build this product, and I hope there's a market, into I want to help these people, and I will listen to them and build something that they need. That is the idea of the embedded entrepreneurship approach. All right. Quick question. I bought the Essentials last week. Is there a way to update to the complete Find Your Following enchilada now? Sure. Purchase it. Send me a DM on Twitter. I'll refund the Essentials. All right. Now, Mark asks, I've been thinking of starting to build in public. Any thoughts on whether to start with an origin story and eventually catching up to current day, or just start with current day and go forward? That's the one. Current day, go forward. Origin story is something that happens. The origin story is kind of something that you will eventually hark back to. But I would always focus on real-time stuff and splice in little hints of your origin story every now and then. Because it's kind of this whole big launch thing. People put way too much emphasis on the big launch and all the narratives around that, and very little on the tiny little breadcrumbs they leave along the way. But it's the breadcrumbs that attract people. The launch is where people are converted, right? That's really what, if you look at a product hunt launch, the companies and the businesses that succeed are not the ones with the best products. They're the ones that have been building their products in public the whole time, motivating people to show up for their launch and then catapult them on top of the list. Product Hunt is an audience amplification engine. That's all it is. It's not a product ranking engine. Like, if you were to rank these products by quality, the list would look very different. But it's an audience amplification engine. The people who bring the most people will rank the highest. So that's kind of the secret of Product Hunt. And it's also the secret of building in public. Showing up every day and talking about what happened today, what decisions you're making today, and what you're going to be doing, what you did yesterday. Over time, this will build the story. The story before, your mental map of why and how, also interesting, but save that for a narrative that you do much later in your story. I would always focus on today. It is good to have it codified, though. If you have a blog post or something like that you can reference, good idea. Or a podcast episode or something like this. It's nice for people who want to listen to this to have that. But building in public should just happen naturally. If you purchase Find Your Following, you will hear me talk about building in public. The example that I use is Potion, which is a Notion to website generator built by Noah Bragg. And I talk about how Noah did it. Noah made people be part of his origin story. He said, I'm going to build a new business. I'm going to tell you tomorrow what it is, which is kind of cute, right? It's like, I'm going to do something. Let's see, right? It gets people excited and gets them interested in the whole story. And then the next day, when a couple of people were already following him just for the announcement, he said, I'm going to build this tool that takes a Notion page and turns it into a website. And I'm going to do it like this. I have these ideas. I have this plan. Here are my current financials. I'm going to talk about it in the video. He laid it out as it happens. So his origin story happened in public. And that is powerful because you can always refer back to that. Like, I could find his tweets where he talked about this, where he shared his origin story in the making. And people were participating in that story. And that is the more powerful origin story compared to the one that you may already have in your mind. Right? So be open to create a new origin story by building in public, by sharing everything you're thinking about, by sharing your decision making, where you are, where you want to go, your thoughts, your fears, all that stuff. That will create a new public and co-owned origin story where other people are already involved. That will allow people to refer to later as something they were part of, which will make them invest in your marketing, in your sales, in your public presence even more. So that's my build in public advice. I'm going to drink. Delicious. So yeah, hope that helps. If you have any further questions, please let me know. I think we have 20 more minutes in here before I can't talk anymore, because apparently talking for 2.5 hours straight is complicated. So yeah, we have that. What else did I want to do? Yeah, I already kind of talked about advice earlier, and much of what I talked about here today was advice. Please always remember that advice comes with context, right? I wouldn't go as far as saying agenda, because I don't really have an agenda. Maybe my agenda is to help people help themselves, and I color my advice that way. Maybe if I was a VC, I would give you different advice on how to build a business. But and not saying that VCs don't want to help people. I'm just saying they have different ultimate goals in how they interact with founders. So my advice comes in the context of A, my own experience, and B, the goals that I have for my relationships that I'm building. So if I tell you something, including this advice on giving and taking advice, I do this from a perspective that is internal to me. And your usage of what I say is contextualized by how well it fits into what you're doing, or should be contextualized by that. So if you take advice, always envision the context in which it is given, who's giving it, what they are trying to accomplish, and why they give it, why they even say it. Right? I could have also not talked about giving advice at this point, so there is always a choice. And then only really take the stuff that you can meaningfully apply to your own lives. That goes for any kind of advice, right? That goes for business advice, relationship advice, for audience building advice, for cooking advice, for anything. And any kind of advice should always be contextualized. You should understand why people give it, who gives it, and to what end they give it. Because if I tell you things that are in my books, part of it is that I want to promote my work. I want people who are at the right point in time to learn from what I have to share, to buy my work, to then learn more, to make it easier for them to get to where they are. That involves the selfish part, that is, you pay me for the book, and it involves the selfless part, which is I want to help you get to where you are, because I could also have written other things for other people and not helped you. So my selfless projection is onto the people that are like me, founders, entrepreneurs, business software people, writers, that kind of stuff. That's who I focus on. And I call this selfless self-promotion. That's the idea of contextualizing anything you do, any promotion that you do, in what it brings to the people that you promote it to, right? That you want to use it. And obviously this is not new. This is common marketing knowledge that you should always lead with what benefits does this have for people. But we live in a world where there's a lot of promotion, a lot of self-promotion, and for many software engineers, people who come from a more technical background that don't have this marketing knowledge, all promotion looks alike. And all promotion is equally bad. I personally come from this kind of school of thought. I remember when I was working with my colleagues in the software business, we were building an IoT platform for power metering. It was a very industry-specific thing. We thought all marketing people were idiots. Like, nobody needs marketing people if the product is good enough. And marketing is just about telling people that they should buy something that they don't want to buy. Many founders that come from a technical background have to struggle with this because they have been kind of socialized in this group of people that abhor all marketing and all sales, that think that everything that is good should sell itself. If you build it, they will come, right? That is something that we even have a movie about it that tells us that it's not true. But in our industry, as an engineer, we often think that if you just build the right thing, people are going to love it. Then we put it in Product Hunt, and then everybody's going to love it. I can tell you one thing. If you don't have an audience and you put it in Product Hunt, you're going to be on spot 98 and nobody's going to look at it. And even if it's good and you don't have awareness and build it by marketing your solution to people who really need it, nothing's going to happen. So marketing is, and self-promotion in particular, can be done in a way that helps the other person. And that is by framing it in their needs, or within their needs, like selfless self-promotion. That's kind of how I see it. Because whenever I talk about anything that I do, is it for my sake or is it for yours? And if you buy this or this is for both of our sakes, but it's mostly for yours, because this might unlock stuff that you don't know, right? I get one more customer, which is wonderful, but it's essentially going to be $10. But if for you, this could make a whole different $5 today, could make a whole different perspective on your life appear in front of you all of a sudden. That is good for you. Like, if you are a founder struggling to get started and you need somebody to tell you how to do it, at least to get to that point where you're confident and you're not struggling with your imposter syndrome anymore, then this is good. And this is for you, which is why I talk to you about this. And I kind of wanted to have this meta discussion right now, because I feel we don't talk about self-promotion enough. And when we talk about it, we always kind of say, don't do it, or don't do lots of it. And Reddit in particular, as a community, and we were talking about like finding and embedding yourself in a community, Reddit is notoriously hard on people who self-promote, because for some reason, Reddit has turned from a community of communities into mini dictatorships around every single subreddit that have their own rules for what community looks like, and it's their vision. It's not what the community actually might need or what would benefit them. So don't promote on Reddit, or be very careful. Like, that is a whole chapter on this in the Embedded Entrepreneur, where I tell you to be careful. And I myself am very careful around Reddit, because people get banned for the smallest things in this community, and that shuts off your problem discovery channel, which is a problem, right? If you can't figure out how to help people in your community because you're not allowed in anymore because you said, oh, I want to help this community with this product. Do you like it? And somebody just slapped you in the face and banned you forever. That's a problem. So try selfless self-promotion wherever you go, because it's good to self-promote. If you've done something that people can use, you should tell them. Like, they deserve to know. Like, it's your obligation to tell people about the thing that you made for them. Because if it's for them, they should know. And that is my perspective on promotion. Yeah, I hope that I can do this in a way that doesn't seem sarcastic now, but I also have things that I sell, obviously, because my info products are products that I want people to be able to buy. And today, as Zero to Soul turns 2 years old, because I published it on June 29th, 2020. Yeah, 2020. Two big fanfares. It was one of the most empowering things of my life. The moment when I published my very first book as a German writing an English book, that alone was a great thing. But having people actually buy it, I think I sold 350 copies that day. It went to #1 on Amazon, and it's where was it? Entrepreneurial Books. Still best day of my life. And it showed me that I can be more than one thing. It showed me that I can be a founder. It showed me that I can be a writer. I can be a developer, all at the same time. Maybe at different points in my life, or at the same time, because at that point I was all of these things. And I still am, really. That is what that day meant to me, which is why today everything is half price. First off, it's half price plus purchasing power parity pricing. So anybody in a country that is not the United States or Canada gets or Europe, many European countries, gets a discount on purchasing power. I just sold a copy of Zero to Sold for $2. That means somebody from a country with, I think, 70 or 60% purchasing power parity pricing has just bought a book, which is great, because that person probably would not have bought it at full price, even with purchasing power parity pricing on. So I'm happy about that. It's just $2 for a book that I would usually probably get $10 for, right? But I don't care about that. I care about that person now being able to read this, and then hopefully, if you're watching, telling me how you liked it. I think this kind of concludes my stream for today. I had a wonderful time. I think I'm going to do more of this, probably shorter next time. But if you have any further questions, again, my Twitter DMs are open. If you go to Twitter, Arvid Kahl, ARVID, that's where I am. I certainly hope to see you around there. And if you have any things you want me to talk about on a stream like this in the future, let me know. And I am absolutely looking forward to doing this again. I think I would like to say thank you to every single person that is still here, that showed up earlier, that was part of this 3-hour extravaganza. I had a wonderful time. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here. Be kind to other people, lift up other founders, help other founders succeed, help other creators become better at what they do and make a living out of it. Give people your honest opinion, give them your feedback, show up. That's all I want. Ignore this amazing sale. Like, it doesn't really matter. What's important to me is that we're all there for each other. So yeah, thank you so much for being here today. I had an amazing time. And I will see you on Twitter, because I spend all day long on Twitter, and that's absolutely worth it. So thanks. Have a wonderful day, and keep building cool stuff and be nice to people.